This video today is another clip from the Dystopia Scrolling live streams. It is an exhaustive deep dive into the events leading up to and occurring on January 6, 2021. The bulk of this consists of reading through the entire timeline of events, followed by a coverage of the fascist Trump's regime's attempts to rewrite history. Don't allow them to do that. I think it is incredibly important that every American take the time to be educated about what actually transpired on that day. The main theme that arises throughout this lengthy video is the depths that the criminals who participated in the conspiracy to undermine our elections will go to cover up and obscure the truth and also use violence to seize power. They are fascist criminals through and through, and this is arguably one of the most tragic things that has happened in the history of our republic. Even today, the sycophantic anti-free speech, anti-truth cultists have continued their war against us and our right to know what happened on that day by censoring and whitewashing official government and public records of the events. Do not allow them to erase history. We all lived through this. We all know what happened. In 1984, George Orwell wrote of the authoritarian regime in his book that the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. This is also the strategy of the Trump regime. You must stand up for the truth, for democracy, and for freedom. Now more than ever, it is critical that we all do our parts to resist their aggressive and illegal takeover of our institutions. So let's get into the January 6th stuff here. We're going to watch a few videos. So first off, we have 5 years later, January 6th aftermath, a remarkable turnabout. Legal analyst. Let's check it out.
House Democrats are releasing two new reports 5 years after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. They're examining President Trump's decision to pardon nearly all of the rioters, the mass firings across law enforcement and the Justice Department.
Another thing he should be impeached for. Look at this idiot. Another thing he should be impeached for, by the way. God, just everyone is more retarded than the next. It's so wild. Yeah. So another thing he should be impeached for, and actually we do have we're going to end this segment, the January 6th segment, I believe, with looking at the January 6th people that he pardoned that have gone on to commit more crimes since being pardoned. That's how we're going to end it tonight. We have a lot to look at tonight with this. We're going to start out just with some updates from this year. Then we're going to look at a timeline of all the events. We're going to take a look at Trump's election fraud scheme. We're going to take a look at Trump's attempt to whitewash history, including on official government websites about January 6th. And then, like I said, we're going to finish up with criminals who have gone on to commit more crimes since being pardoned. So that's the first part of the night here. So let's take a look at this.
And where many of the people connected to the attack are today. The House Judiciary Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin says President Trump's pardons were a turning point. He says they created a private militia of proven street fighters that represent a nightmare for public safety. And now Democrats are holding a special hearing on the issue today. ABC.
How many of the Jan 6 dickheads are pedos again? I think at least 2, but maybe we'll find out.
Legal contributor James Samples here for more on that.
God, oh my, hold on. Real quick. This was a look. I feel like he's learned to tone down the makeup a little bit. I forgot how ridiculous. Look at his like ears and like his face fat like on the side of his face. This is so ridiculous. Oh man, what a fucking shit crusted clown that's leading us all to hell. Nazi fascists tend to be pedos. Yeah. I mean, I was talking about the other night how I think like there's definitely a link between authoritarianism and pedophilia, and the actual act of like acting out your pedophilia, because it's all about fascism typically is about strength overall and brutality overall, and if we can do it and no one can stop us, we'll do it. And you often find in especially when there's systemic pedophilia, like in certain industries or in the Catholic Church, for example. Or with Jeffrey Epstein and everything, it's all about power. It's all about having power over the powerless. Power means you fuck children, not necessarily. Power, but I do think there are certain people who like the authoritarian aspects of power. Not everyone who has power is an authoritarian, right? Or uses their power in an authoritarian way to be oppressive. But yeah, I do think there is people who tend to do that also tend to be pedophiles, probably. I'm not a psychologist, guys. That's just my That is my theory. Is Robert Smith no, not that I know of. No, I don't think so. Why would you say that? How are you just saying that because you know he's my favorite or what? The day that I'm happy David Lynch made it out of here without being canceled or Me Too'd or anything. Don't meet your heroes. He's got a lot of power over you. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Definitely not. Like I don't have the celebrity thing that people get, where I like give a shit about celebrities other than just like I'm able to compartmentalize their work, right? That's how I'm able to admit like Roman Polanski made some pretty great films, even though he's a child rapist, sort of, Dude, you want to wear Lynch's skin. What do you mean? No, I don't. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do I mean? Shut the fuck up. Let's watch the video, okay? Holy shit.
Contributor James Samples here for more on that.
I'm saying I'm happy Lynch never got Me Too'd or anything. Never got canceled for that shit. I'm above caring about celebrities. I mean, I'm sad when they die. Like Lynch was he was really influential to me. But like I didn't put him on a pedestal or anything. Like I'm able to realize like that he was a human, I don't know. You guys are ridiculous. Also, when someone dies, it's okay to do hero worship, I feel. You should only have dead heroes, and I think you'll be okay. You also dreamt of living in his house. Did I? Maybe. Oh, yeah, you're right. I did. Kind of. But it wasn't really his house. It was like, yeah. Yeah, it was his house in some ways, but... You mean actually like I wished that I lived in his house. Like when his daughter was selling his house, I don't know if she sold it yet or not, for $15 million. And if I had $15 million, hell yeah. Are you kidding? That place is sick. The legacy of it is sick. It's sort of like there's a lot of history there, a lot to be inspired by, I think. With 15 million, build your own. Yeah, that would be cool. I would like to build my own house. That would be nice. I'll probably never have $15 million, so that's something that we never have to worry about. I used to check every time I went shopping when I was a kid if Britney Spears was on a magazine. Okay, nice. Yeah, I was never really into Britney, but she's all right. Okay. 5 years later, Jan 6 aftermath, a remarkable turnabout, legal analyst.
Hi, James. So prosecutors worked painstakingly, right, to convict hundreds of rioters. Then
no, Britney was when I was like really young is when she blew up, like the early 2000s, I think, right? When I was like elementary school aged.
President Trump pardoned them.
Yeah.
And many of those prosecutors were fired as a result of their work on those January 6 cases. So what impact overall do you think those pardons have had in terms of direct impact and also the message they send?
Diane, I think the pardons have had an extraordinary impact, both directly and indirectly, in the sense that obviously directly they had an extraordinary impact in the sense that 1,600 people facing charges and had not yet been convicted, but were facing.
I was 5 in 2007. Damn. Yeah, that's crazy. Being born after 9/11 is wild. I just always liked her. Yeah, it's fine.
Charges were essentially absolved of the events of January.
She's got some bangers, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with her songs. I know like Toxic, the Womanizer song that Shani was screaming at Rev the other night. You guys, this is a solemn video, okay? We're doing January 6th stuff.
January 6th, including hundreds of those.
Do you think Brittany was at Jan 6? No, I don't think she's one of them. I hope not. I don't know.
Individuals who were convicted and or plea bargained and pleaded guilty to assaulting law enforcement officers. So the direct impact is that those individuals were freed of the consequences of their actions. Indirectly, those pardons have been an extraordinary catalyst for a juxtaposition with respect to the history of that day. And President Trump has been incredibly successful in flipping the narrative of January 6th from being an attack on the Capitol, an attack.
He hasn't, right? Donald Trump has not been successful of flipping the narrative of January 6th. He's trying to, ow, fuck. Just spilled some hot tea on me, guys. Very painful. He's trying to like rewrite history in a lot of ways, but nobody's falling for that shit. Everybody knows what a fucking liar it is. What a fucking liar he is. How it was a treasonous insurrection. We all know that. We all remember that. Most people know that. It's not too long. Most people remember living through that shit. Yeah, that's quite a neck that you posted there. Someone should blow a fucking hole in it. It was insane that this happened, and it wasn't the level of Watergate. It was way worse. I mean, it should have been like, really, Mitch McConnell is to blame for Trump being president again. Maybe we'll get into that here in a minute.
Attack on law enforcement officers and attack on democracy to one in which the individuals who engaged in that activity are actually the victims in the narrative that seems to be at least adopted by a significant portion of America and certainly by the president's base, the victims of politically motivated prosecutions. The idea is that the prosecutors are the ones who committed a wrong and the individuals who were prosecuted were the victims. It's really a remarkable turnabout.
House Democrats are holding this hearing today in part to defend their investigation. From a legal perspective, how will that effort be remembered another 5 or 50 years from now?
Good question. It's hard to say. I think that, I mean, certainly today's hearing probably won't be remembered. I mean, in our current news cycles and with everything else going on around the world, I think that it's going to be hard for today's hearing to be remembered in just a...
Yeah. Another thing, you know, there's so much distraction going on the global stage, you know, with Venezuela and everything. Tends to have a numbing effect after the 70th Watergate in a row. Yeah. It's the shock and awe, right? It's the... we're going to overload them with horrible things so nothing is able to stick, because the second the scandal happens, we've done 10 more scandals. That's the Steve Bannon strategy.
Couple of days. And in fact, today's hearing is known as a special hearing. It's not actually a formal...
Well, Trump wasn't a baby murderer in the Epstein files. He just raped a child while somebody else murdered a baby. All right? He was not the baby murderer. He was just raping the 13-year-old mother of the baby, apparently. Can we just do a Britney video instead? This is getting me heated. No. First of all, you guys already submitted your music for the night, okay? We've got Depeche Mode, and we've got the MIA song that Gage has recommended twice now that are getting played tonight. And then, you know, after, if you guys want a Britney song, you can recommend it for next time. Holy shit. Imagine if Bill started a war to avoid the news covering his dick getting sucked. I mean, he didn't start a war because of that, but yeah.
Hearing in the House of Representatives, because the Democrats don't have the power to call a formal hearing under House rules. So this hearing is not official. They can't compel witnesses to attend. They don't have subpoena power. But with respect to the House Select Committee's report from 2022 about what transpired in 2021, you know, there were 1,000 witnesses. There was an 800-page final report. Now there's an addendum and a sort of follow-on to that report that's being released today. I think the narrative of history and the history of January 6th is not something that we can write today. I think you're absolutely right to think about the lens of, you know, history as viewed in the future. I think that the competition as to who gets to...
But look, guys, to answer your, you know, what you guys are talking about, what this video is about, really, like, it's our responsibility to make sure that it's not for... God, he's so fucking retarded. Like, he's wearing someone else's skin on his face. It's nuts. But to get back to it, though, it's our responsibility to make sure that this isn't forgotten, right? To bring this up whenever it's pertinent, to remember for ourselves what happened. Everyone here lived through it. Maybe you weren't paying attention, McChicken. You were, you're excused being Canadian at all. But, for the rest of us, like, this is something that we all should remember. This is kind of like 9/11. Like, it's one of those things where you just remember what you were doing the moment it was happening. I hate everything about Trump. Everything he does pisses me off. Yeah, he's a loathsome piece of shit.
Define the events of January 6th and the impact that those events had on American democracy. I think that's going to be something that is continually written over time. But for now, the upper hand is very different than it was in the immediate aftermath of that day. I mean, if 5 years ago on this day, 5 years ago as of tomorrow, think about almost every Republican in Congress was condemning what occurred, including even the likes of Mitch McConnell. Where we are today with respect to partisan division, and partisan division specifically as to that day, extraordinary difference.
ABC's legal contributor James Sample, thank you.
Yeah. So first video there, just, they're doing a hearing right now about the pardons. We'll see if anything comes of that. Probably not. Listen to Trump's call. So we're getting into it now. We've got a couple videos here that are pretty short. They go over the phone call Trump made to the Georgia officials, Brad Raffensperger, who he asked to make up fake elections for him, to find me 11,000 votes. Let's go.
Not possible to have lost Georgia. It's not possible. When I heard it was close, I said there's no way. But they dropped a lot of votes in there late at night. You know that, Brett. And that's what we are working on very, very stringently. But regardless of those votes, with all of it being said, We lost by essentially 11,000 votes, and we have many more.
So Trump is trying to, like, the fact that voting isn't finished like that, like before midnight on election night is Trump's whole point of, like, trying to say, look, they added votes. You went to bed and then you woke up and there were votes. Like, that's so insane. It's such a ridiculous exploitation of history and the way that it's always been. That's what he is. He tries to just make accusation, harp on something, and force the narrative to change. He's a Nazi, right? He's just doing propaganda. I was on Facebook mocking all the idiots getting pepper sprayed and shot that day. Yeah, okay.
More votes already calculated and certified to. So I just don't know, Mark, I don't know what's the purpose. I won't give Dominion a pass because we found too many bad things, but we don't need Dominion or anything else. We have won this election in Georgia based on all of this. And this.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, we've got the Dominion lawsuit that we can do, but we don't even need to do that if you just fake 11,000 votes for me. And the Dominion lawsuit, of course, was thrown out in court. There has been, like, some super dystopian updates to that, in that Dominion is now purchased by a Trump-aligned oligarch. But, prior to that, the Dominion won in court. They sued Fox News for the lies about their, about their voting machines being illegitimate and rigged, and they won. A huge defamation case. That's probably why Tucker Carlson was fired. They got their dogs to vote, people. They got their dogs to vote before they ate them. The cats too. Good point. It's so fucking insane this was allowed. It's insane that this, as Trump so eloquently put it, what is the punishment for treason? What's the punishment for sedition? Why is there no law in this country? What's the punishment for sedition?
There's nothing wrong with saying that, Brad. Having.
Could I just say that Trump has the most grating voice of all time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Correct. The people of Georgia are angry. And these numbers are going to be repeated on Monday night, along with others that we're going to have by that time, which are much more substantial even. And the people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated, because the 2,236 and absentee ballots, they're all exact numbers that were done by accounting firms, law firms, etc. And even if you...
It's just trying to filibuster his way in here, trying to, like, look, there's all these things, random things. Look at this, look at that.
Cut them in half, and cut them in half again. It's more votes than we need.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
Yeah, that's part one. Well, Mr. President, the problem is that you're just telling me lies. Nothing you're saying is true. That's the issue. Find me votes. Trump caught on tape. This is from the same call, I believe. That whole call was like an hour long, by the way.
So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000.
What are we going to do? I only need 11,000 votes, folks. What are we going to do?
Votes, fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. A leaked recording of Donald Trump shows the president asking colleagues to find votes. Is that Jeff Bezos? No. Yeah, the fact that the Secret Service is not, taking him into custody, he hasn't been tried for sedition and convicted, and the punishment for that hasn't been meted out as, as the law, is wild. It's insane.
If we could just go over some of the numbers, I think it's pretty clear that we won. We won very substantially, Georgia. The people of Georgia are angry. And these numbers are going to be repeated on Monday night, along with others that we're going to have by that time, which are much more substantial even.
That's him leaving. Get the fuck out of here.
And the people of Georgia are angry.
We've got, so at the end of the news segment tonight, guys, the final video that we're going to, after, not the January 6th segment, but the whole news segment, is Trump freaking out earlier today or maybe yesterday, realizing the position that he's put himself in. So there is some justice and there is fear. You could say fear is the prime motivator in his life, really, but there is fear that is leaking through. You'll see. You'll have to wait.
The country are angry, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
Look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780
I don't know. It's closer to 12,000 votes than 11,000 votes.
votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state, and flipping the state is a great testament to our country, because, you know, it's a testament that they can admit to a mistake, or whatever you want to call it, if it was a mistake. I don't know.
If it was a mistake, who knows? Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was on purpose. Maybe nothing happened at all. Who can say? Get me 11,000 votes. In a tweet, Trump acknowledged the meeting before the Washington Post published the tape. I spoke to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger yesterday about Fulton County and voter fraud in Georgia. He was unwilling or unable to answer questions such as the ballots under the table scam, ballot destruction, out-of-state voters, quote unquote, dead voters, and more. He has no clue. Okay. He got community noted. This claim about election fraud is disputed. Yeah. A lie also is another way to say that. He should be blanked with a blank. Yeah, and his blank should be blanked all over the blank. Your Trump voice makes me want to stab my eardrums. It's all right.
Well, it was, yes, certainly the voice of desperation. Most certainly that. And it was a bald-faced, bold abuse of power by the President of the United States.
That's Harris, reflecting on what... what do you think about Trump's phone call to Georgia? Well, he's a piece of shit liar who tried to steal an election. 2 runoff votes are now being held in Georgia, which will determine control of the Senate. This is old news, guys. So I think that was Ossoff and Warnock, if I'm correct, maybe. That was before, this was 3 years ago. All right. Oh no, this was, I guess they were and that this was 5 years ago, yeah. This was right. Huh. This was right before January 6th. Isn't that interesting? This dropped 2 days before January 6th. So what that shows you is that Trump had been, actually, well, I'm not even going to tell you because we're going to read it right now together. Timeline of the January 6th United States Capitol attacks. The following article, Wikipedia, the only trusted source, guys, in today's world. The following article is a broad timeline of the course of events surrounding the attack on the United States Capitol on January 6th by rioters supporting the United States President Donald Trump's attempts to overturn his defeat in the 2020 election. So July through October 2020 is the first segment here. Ew. Why are you posting that? I love Wikipedia. Yeah. Yeah, I love Wikipedia too. It's my favorite. July 30th, 2020. Trump cast skepticism on mail-in ballots at a press briefing. I don't want to see a term like projected winner a week after November 3rd or a month or, frankly, with litigation and everything else that can happen, years, or you never even know who won the election, he says. He adds, I want an election and a result much, much more than you. Who's he talking to? September 23rd, asked at a press briefing if he'll commit to a peaceful transfer of power, Trump responds, the ballots are a disaster. Get rid of the ballots and we'll have a very peaceful, there won't be a transfer, frankly. There will be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. What does that mean? Mail-in ballots, surely, is what he's talking about. Not just cancel the election, everybody. I love looking at yeah. Ridiculous. So absurd. The ballots are out of control. September 29th. During a presidential debate, Trump orders members of the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. This direction by the president is well received by the Proud Boys, and white nationalist men begin to join in record numbers. Their membership will triple by January 6th. So between September 29th and January 6th, the Proud Boys membership tripled. October 31st, Steve Bannon explains to associates that Trump has a strategy. What Trump's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory, but that doesn't mean he's a winner. He's just going to say he's a winner. That was Steve Bannon on October 31st. On November 3rd, Election Day, on election night, 15 to 20 people in the White House moved to the green room where Trump will wait for results. One of these people tells Trump loudly that the election was stolen. Others say, whoa, 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 just let's go out and say there's still time. We need to do this count. We'll see you in the morning. As recalled by a guest in the residential part of the White House who spoke to investigators. No, I'm assuming a lot of this is from the Jack Smith investigation that got leaked recently. So this is probably updated not too long ago. Trump addresses supporters at the White House and references the ongoing count of ballots, alleging an attempt to disenfranchise people who voted for him. He declares, "We won't stand for it. We'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop." Yeah, I know you do. Yeah, you do, you fascist. Yeah. You hate voting. You hate elections. Fuck you, dipshit. "We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 a.m. and add them to the list. We were getting ready to win this election, frankly. We did win this election." Wow. A Trump campaign employee learns that the ongoing vote count at the TCF Center in Detroit suggests that Biden has won that region. The campaign employee texts an attorney and suggests rioting at the center around that time. Trump supporters approached the center, challenging the vote count, according to prosecutors in December 2023. Yeah. So, guys, this wasn't just the January 6th riot. There was a whole conspiracy. We'll probably learn. I haven't pre-read this, but, just because I know the lore, we'll probably learn a little bit in this about how he had a whole slew of fake electors. It was part of a larger conspiracy in which he intended to overturn the lawful and correct results of that election. The ballots thing is so stupid, they delivered more ballots. That's all that happened. Yeah. November 5th, Roger Stone, who I think was in prison because of this, dictates a message saying that any legislative, or maybe that was before, I forgot why Roger Stone was in prison. But he was pardoned by Trump. Dictates a message saying that any legislative body that has overwhelming evidence of fraud can choose their own electors to cast electoral college votes. Yeah. And so any legislative body, any of the electors that have overwhelming evidence of fraud can just choose their own electors, can just throw out all the votes and pick their own, who they want the votes to go to. What things do we have in place to stop this from happening again, by the way? Nothing. If anything, we're worse off now than we were. Trump falsely claims that illegitimate ballots were dumped at a voting center in Detroit. November 7th, the Associated Press, Fox News, and other major networks call Pennsylvania for Biden, thus putting him above the required 270 electoral votes to be named president-elect. Senior staffers on the Trump campaign tell Trump that unless the election results are flipped in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, an event they assign only a 5 to 10% chance, he is lost. Kenneth Chesbrough, who we'll learn more about, who's a total piece of shit, tweeted through an anonymous Twitter account that the big picture was that Trump doesn't have to get courts to declare him the winner of the vote. He just needs to convince Republican legislatures that the election was systematically rigged, but it's impossible to run it again, so they should appoint electors instead. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll see. Hopefully, I wish, hey, if, we all need to, I guess that's up to all of us to make sure it doesn't happen again, but yeah, we are so disenfranchised now. AI says we did some shit, actually. Okay. We did do some shit, actually. Okay. November 10th, reacting to the firings of Esper and the, okay, what do you got here? Higher objection thresholds. The ECRA raised the requirement of members of Congress to object to a state's electoral votes from just one representative and one senator to 1/5. That doesn't sound good. Okay, I see what you're saying. That is better. I guess that's a little bit better. Supreme Court rulings in the 2023 case, Moore v. Harper. The Supreme Court ruled that the state legislators do not have the power to independently overturn election results, limiting a key legal theory used in the 2020 plot. Mandatory official certification. The law now requires Congress to only count electoral certificates signed by a state's governor or another official designated by state law, making alternate states legally invalid based. Okay, that's great. That's pretty good. I like that. so we have done some things, it looks like, to prevent this from happening again. But, the regime doesn't follow the law. So who knows? November 10th, reacting to the firings of Esper and other top officials, CIA Director Gina Haspel privately tells the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Milley, that we are on the way to a right-wing coup. November 13th, Trump's campaign manager tells him that a claim that many non-citizens have voted in Arizona is a false rumor. So he was told multiple times that your information is wrong, He was told that, so that proves intent and foreknowledge. He understood what he was doing was a lie, was fraud. He was committing fraud knowingly. The Trump campaign attorneys concede in court that he did not win Arizona. This means he has lost the election for the presidency. So remember, officially the news outlets called it on November 7th. Almost a week later, on the 13th, his attorneys finally admit that he lost the election in court. But he doesn't. On November 14th, Trump announces that he is putting Rudy Giuliani in charge of challenging the election result. Every paragraph, every day, we get a new supervillain who joins the League of Doom. Over 10,000 people gather in Freedom Plaza for the Million MAGA March in support of Trump's election fraud claims. Speakers include Alex Jones and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. So even though now Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to do her rehabilitation tour and leave MAGA, don't forget what she did. Don't forget what she participated in. She was a part of this conspiracy. Trump circles Freedom Plaza in his motorcade. Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and 3%ers are in attendance. Proud Boys skirmish with counter-protesters throughout the day. At least, I wonder how many of them are just in ICE now. At least 20 people are arrested and 2 D.C. police officers are injured. That evening, Trump praises his supporters who fought with counter-protesters. Near midnight, a massive Trump Law and Order banner is laid atop Black Lives Matter Plaza, then moved close to the White House. November 16th, Sidney Powell, the new cretin to enter into the arena, just a total psycho, who also, I believe, was prosecuted. I'm not sure. Wasn't she? Or she was disbarred. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Sidney Powell wrote that allegations against a voting machine company must be added to lawsuits in Georgia and Pennsylvania, alleging fraud that requires the entire election to be set aside, all caps. Wow. In an internal communication with a Fox News producer, Tucker Carlson said he didn't believe the election fraud claims as presented by Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani. Sidney Powell is lying, Carlson said. Calling her dangerous as hell. Calling her dangerous as hell and a complete nut. No one will work with her. Ditto with Rudy. 3 days later, he wrote in an article that we took Sidney Powell seriously. We've always respected her work, and we simply wanted to see the details. So we invited Sidney Powell on the show, but she never sent us any evidence. When we checked with others around the Trump campaign, they told us Powell had never given them any evidence. We are certainly hopeful that she will provide it. He added that this country will not be united until everyone agrees on whether fraud had occurred. November 17th, the next day, at a meeting of the Wayne County, Michigan Election Board, canvassers Monica Palmer and William Hartman initially refused to certify Biden's victory, but faced with public opposition to their choice, they backed down. At 9:53 p.m. and 10:04 p.m., with Trump on the line, Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel calls Palmer's phone. Hartman is also on the call. Trump tells the canvassers they'll look terrible if they certify the election results. McDaniel promises them, we will get you attorneys. Yeah. They're basically telling them to commit crimes. The Republican Party is a criminal organization. Palmer publicly acknowledges the call at the time, but the recording is not published until 3 years later. November 18th, Palmer and Hartman try to take back their support for certification. Their request is denied. Kenneth Chesbrough, remember him, sends his first memo on strategy. November 21st, Women for America First files a permit application for a rally at the Lincoln Memorial on December 12th. The group's original application for a rally in Freedom Plaza was denied because of inauguration preparations. And this is a conservative group. You know, they say Women for America First, but they're pretty much just, they're anti-woman conspirators. All of these people should be in the Capitol Square. All of these people should be tried There should be a fair and legal process. And if they're found guilty of their crimes, they should face justice for that. And I believe that is justice. That is the law. And that should be carried out. November 22nd, Trump and Giuliani call the Arizona House Speaker and make false claims of election fraud. November 23rd, White House counsel Pat Cipollone, maybe Cipollone, I don't know, tells U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr that Trump wants to speak to him. It is the first time Barr has met face-to-face with Trump since the election. The U.S. Attorney's Office had searched for fraud for 2 weeks and found none. In the meeting, Trump maintains falsehoods about the election. Barr tells Trump that his claims of sweeping fraud are just not meritorious and not panning out. Barr reminds Trump that the DOJ is not an extension of your legal team. After the meeting, Mark Meadows tells Barr that he believes Trump knows that there's a limit to how far he can take this. However, over the next week, Barr comes to believe that Trump is maneuvering in his meetings with state legislatures. Barr will have 2 more face-to-face meetings with Trump. November 25th, Trump tweeted in favor of suing the governor of Georgia for election fraud, despite previously admitting in private that Powell sounded crazy. Sidney Powell then filed the lawsuit. So he's been tweeting out his edicts to his fucking lackeys for years. It's not just, Pam, you need to prosecute this person. It's ridiculous. It's so absurd. These people destroyed our country. December 2020. Remember, guys, so don't let them rewrite the history. Don't let them rewrite this history. December 1st, Giuliani meets with the Arizona House Speaker, asked for the evidence of election fraud. Giuliani says roughly, "We don't have the evidence, but we have lots of theories." U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr says in an interview published on this day by the AP that there is no evidence of election fraud on a scale that would change the election outcome. When Trump hears that Barr has publicly contradicted him, he is so angry that he throws his lunch at the wall, according to a White House's aide. Testimony on the January 6th House Committee on June 28th, 2022. Trump and Barr meet in person for the second time since the election. Trump was as mad as I've ever seen him, Barr later recalls. Barr offers to resign and Trump accepts, but White House lawyers Pat Cipollone and Eric Hirschman follow Barr into the parking lot to persuade him otherwise. Barr ends up staying on for 2 more weeks. December 2nd, Facebook disbands its civic integrity team, including the group task force, after employees' vocal internal complaints about lack of action leaked and caused embarrassment. This slows enforcement against Facebook groups and users spreading election misinformation and calling for political violence. The company also drops other emergency members put in place for the election season. On Facebook, Trump posts his speech about election fraud. December 3rd, Giuliani organized a presentation to the Georgia State Senate, intending to persuade the senators to invalidate the real electors. Trump tweeted that it was blockbuster testimony. December 6th, Kenneth Chesbrough sends his second memo on strategy. In it, he explains the fake elector scheme to the Trump campaign. He acknowledges it is primarily a tactic to buy time to overturn the election in court, as the fake electors themselves would probably be overturned by the Supreme Court. Yeah, there's a whole conspiracy behind this, beyond just January 6 riots. They were like the last-ditch effort of this 2-month-long attempt for Trump to remain in power, even though he knows he lost. And Kenneth Chesbrough, Sidney Powell, all these people who were complicit in it, Rudy Giuliani, all of them need to face justice. There still needs to be justice for this. Okay. December 7th, the Arizona Republican Party asked supporters whether they are willing to give their lives fighting over the election results. Sidney Powell's lawsuit against Georgia was dismissed. Yeah, so she tried to sue Georgia to get them to change their results to find the 11,000, but that was dismissed. Rudy Giuliani attempts to send this text messages: "So I need you to pass a joint resolution from the legislature that states The election is in dispute. There's an ongoing investigation by the legislature, and the electors sent by Governor Whitmer are not the official electors of the state of Michigan and do not fall within the safe harbor deadline under Michigan law. Because he had entered an incorrect number, the message did not send. How incompetent. We're lucky the fascists are such fucking dipshits. You know? By now, we'd probably be living in Nazi Germany if they weren't this retarded. Trump called the journey. So after Sidney Powell's lawsuit is dismissed, right, which was on December 7th, the next day on December 8th, Trump called the Georgia Attorney General to pressure him. That was what we just listened to before this. One of Trump's senior campaign advisors expressed frustration that Giuliani's claims were unsubstantiated. It's tough to own any of this, he wrote in an email, when it's all just conspiracy shit beamed down from the mothership. Yeah. General Michael Flynn receives a presidential pardon. He would later participate in the D.C. events on January 5th. December 9th, Kenneth Chesbrough sends his third memo on strategy. December 10th, at a Georgia House hearing, Giuliani falsely accused Ruby Freeman and Wandrea Arche Moss of misconduct, and I believe those women won a lawsuit against him because he destroyed their lives with these accusations because Trump's fucking sycophants are so insane. His death cultists, so violent and unhinged and irrational and dangerous. December 12th, Proud Boys marched through Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C. in advance of the pro-Trump rally schedule later in the day. The pro-Trump rallies in Washington, D.C. attract thousands of Trump supporters protesting the election results, including numerous Proud Boys. Speakers include Michael Finn, Sebastian Gorka, Alex Jones, podcaster David Harris Jr., Nick Fuentes, Mike Lindell, and the Oath Keepers leader, Stuart Rhodes. Jones says Joe Biden is a globalist and Joe Biden will be removed one way or another. Fuentes gets the crowd to chant, "Destroy the GOP, destroy the GOP." Flynn tells the crowd that he is certain that Trump will be the next president. Rhodes calls on Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act and warns that not doing so would lead to a much more bloody war. Trump flies over the crowd several times in Marine One and tweets his appreciation for their support. Violent clashes throughout the day between Proud Boys and counter-protesters led to 33 arrests, including for assault on a police officer. That night, Proud Boys members vandalized 4 churches and burn a Black Lives Matter banner. Violent terrorists. Kenneth Chesbrough proposes to Matt Morgan and Mike Roman that they add legal language to all 7 fake elector certificates to protect the fake electors who are named there. Roman texts Chesbrough, "Fuck these guys." The language is added only to the certificates for Pennsylvania and New Mexico. Yeah, they don't even care to protect their own fucking goons, you know? So absurd. So ridiculous. December 13th. But I agree. Fuck them. Fuck them all and fuck you too. A political consultant joins a phone call with Rudy Giuliani and a senior campaign advisor for Trump. This call is later mentioned in the 2023 indictment of Trump. A New York Times report tries to identify the unnamed consultant that Boris Epstein. Jesus. In late evening, Chesbrough emails Rudy Giuliani and others with a proposal for Pence to rescue himself from certifying the election results, saying he lost the several-page memo I had nearly finished due to a reboot on the hotel computer and does not want to waste more time. He briefly summarizes his proposal. The incompetence is nuts, dude. So this is a summary. The U.S. House Select Committee on the January 6th attack will later conclude that Chesbrough drafted his strategy upon request from the Trump campaign official Boris Epstein. This guy. Piece of shit. December 14th, Biden wins the Electoral College vote. Trump electors for Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, all of which Biden won in the election, cast purported electoral votes for Trump. The votes cast by the pro-Trump alternate electors have no legal standing. The pro-Trump groups in the 5 states sent their fake electoral votes to the National Archives, but the National Archives did not forward these to Congress because under the Electoral Count Act, only states certified by the states are forwarded to Congress. One American News releases a video about Trump's re-election efforts with a voiceover stating, supporters of President Trump are continuing to fight for 4 more years, storming the nation's capital to participate in dueling rallies. Attorney General William Barr tells Trump he will resign. It is their 3rd and final face-to-face meeting since the election. Trump accepts his resignation, and it is publicly announced. Barr recommends as his replacement Jeffrey A. Rosen as acting attorney general and Richard Donahue as deputy. Trump accepts these suggestions and begins to pressure Rosen and Donahue to investigate the election. Ridiculous. Epstein later said, I abstain from this. Okay, good one, dude. December 15th, the Trump campaign mails a certificate with the name of the fake electors for Michigan. 3 weeks later, the post office tracking will continue to say in transit. Trump summoned incoming acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and incoming acting Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue, who explained to him that Giuliani's claims of fraud at the State Farm Arena in Georgia were false. December 16th, the National Council of the 3 Percenters original group, one of the largest 3 Percenter militias, issued a statement alleging that there was widespread fraud perpetrated against the American people. The statement continues, we stand ready and are standing by to answer the call from our president should the need arise that we the people are needed to take back our country from the pure evil that is conspiring to steal our country away from the American people. We are ready to enter into battle with General Flynn leading the charge. We will not act unless we are told to, and we will not act on our own as TTPO, but rather as a united body of American patriots. The National Council, the 3 Percenters original. Yeah. Isn't that wild? This is so incriminating. A luncheon at Trump International Hotel results in a draft executive order. The order would direct the Secretary of Defense to immediately seize voting machines and would establish Sidney Powell as a special counsel empowered to oversee this operation and institute all criminal and civil proceedings. December 17th, Representative Paul Gosar claims that Trump won Arizona because of the alleged data theft of 700,000 votes. December 18th, unscheduled meeting between Sidney Powell, Michael Flynn, and Patrick Byrne, outside group, and Trump. White House counsel Pat Cipollone joins immediately upon learning of it. The outside group advances Flynn's proposal that the president declare martial law and, according to Eric Hirschman's recollection, suggests that Venezuela meddled in the election. Wow. Holy shit, dude. Isn't that wild? Isn't that fucking crazy? Trump, contrary to his advisor's opinion, suggests naming Powell as special counsel to investigate alleged election fraud. The two camps are shouting at each other, throwing insults at each other, according to Derek Lyons, former White House chief of staff. The meeting shifts to Yellow Oval and breaks up after midnight. Mark Meadows escorts Giuliani so he won't wander back into the mansion. Jesus. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy and Army Chief of Staff General James McConnell put out a statement. There is no role for the U.S. military in determining the outcome of an American election. In response, Trump aide Johnny McEntee wrote a note. Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller spoke to both of them and anticipates no more statements coming out. If another happens, he will fire them. Though this note was torn up, the House Select Committee later recovered it. To reserve a room for January 6, 2021 at Trump's D.C. hotel, customers will pay at least $476. Okay. December 19th, 1:42 a.m., Trump announces the January 6th rally on Twitter, stating, statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election. Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there. Will be wild. What the fuck, dude? Speaking at a rally in Arizona, Ali Alexander appears to advocate for violence against Republican members of Congress who do not fight to overturn the election results. December 20th, the domain name wildprotest.com is registered to host a website advertising a protest near the Capitol from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on January 6th. Congresswoman-elect Marjorie Taylor Greene text messages U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler inviting her to a White House meeting with Trump and members of Congress who plan to challenge the electoral votes for Biden in several key swing states on January 6th, as Greene phrased it. To reserve a room for January 6, 2021 at Trump's D.C. hotel, customers will pay at least $1,999, 4 times more than 2 days previously. This is all he's just fleecing them too. It's ridiculous. December 21st, according to Representative Mo Brooks from Alabama, Trump met with several Republican members of Congress at the White House to discuss the planning and strategy for January the 6th. Brooke told Politico there are plans to challenge the results in 6 states, said total debate times would clock in at around 18 hours. That means the vote counting process could bleed into the wee hours of January 7th. Attendees included Vice President Mike Pence, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, Representative Andy Briggs from Arizona, Representative Matt Gaetz from Florida, remember him? Representative Louis Gohmert from Texas. Jesus, if you guys, we've covered him before, he's terrible. Representative Jody Heiss, Representative Jim Jordan, and Representative-elect Marjorie Taylor Greene. The conspirators there. These people need to be prosecuted. Trump supporters are just as bad. They don't care about anything but keeping their beliefs intact. Fuck them, even though... Okay, all right, buddy. Yeah, I mean... I don't... Whatever. December 22nd. Oath Keepers Florida chapter leader Kelly Meggs writes on Facebook, Trump said it's going to be wild, adding, it's going to be wild. He wants us to make it wild. That's what he's saying. He called us all to the Capitol and wants us to make it wild. Sir, yes, sir. Gentlemen, we are heading to D.C. Pack your shit. George Papadopoulos receives a presidential pardon. He would later participate in the D.C. events of January 5th. December 23rd. Phil Waldron texted Mark Meadows informing him that an Arizona judge had dismissed a lawsuit in which the GOP lawmakers demanded access to voting machines. Waldron acknowledged that his opponents might try to delay him from accessing the machines. Meadows replied, pathetic. Roger Stone receives a presidential pardon. He would later participate in the D.C. events of January 5th. John Eastman wrote a memo on January 6th strategy proposing that Pence then gavels President Trump as reelected. The main thing here is that Pence should do this without asking for permission. At 1:32 p.m., Eastman emailed Trump's assistant asking to speak to the president about strategic thinking. 5 minutes later, the White House called Eastman. The call lasted nearly 23 minutes. Trump tweeted an allegation that Georgia officials were deliberately hiding evidence of fraud. December 24th. Pence, if you want that guy that you're talking about in chat here, if you want, I will not only debate him on anti-vax stuff, I'll debate him on January 6th too. Pence wrote himself a note, not feeling like I should attend electoral count, too many questions, too many doubts, too hurtful to my friend, Trump. Therefore, I'm going to participate in certification of election. December 25th, Pence called Trump to wish him a Merry Christmas. Trump changed the subject, asking Pence to reject electoral votes on January 6th, to which Pence objected. Pence admonished Trump, you know that I don't think I have the authority to change the election outcome. The line appeared in Pence's memoir with a comma after it, you know, implying that the phrase was merely conversational. Pence told prosecutors that the comma should not have been printed. Okay. December 27th. You can say, I know, but I don't want to. I don't want to. It's okay. But yes, that would be cool. Well, you can ask him. I'd rather, that's something I want him to, if he's okay with it, we can record it for the channel. But yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to get into that. President Trump promotes the January 6th rally on Twitter again. December 28th, Jeffrey Clark drafts a letter to Georgia's governor and leaders of the Georgia House and Senate. The letter asked the Georgia General Assembly to call a special session to consider claims of election irregularities, decide who won the most legal votes, and take whatever action is necessary to ensure that one of the states of electors cast on December 14th will be accepted by Congress on January 6th. Pat Cipollone warns Trump that the letter will damage everyone who touches it, and we should have nothing to do with that letter. Rosen and Donahue refused to sign the letter, and it is not sent. It is later mentioned in ethics charges filed against Clark on July 19th, 2022. Don't say my name. Okay. December 30th, President Trump again announces the date of the January 6th rally on Twitter. The domain name marchtosaveamerica.com is registered. A popular far-right YouTuber posted a video in which he said he anticipated over 1 million armed Americans, quote unquote, would be in the streets for a red wedding. If you guys, I'm sure we've all seen Game of Thrones here. On January 6th, a reference to a fictional massacre in Game of Thrones. Yeah. Senator Mike Lee texts Trump advisor Cleta Mitchell opposing the January 6th plan as a dangerous idea for the Republic itself. Will you please explain to me how this doesn't create a slippery slope problem for all future presidential elections? December 31st, by this date, the wildprotest.com website settles on a protest location just northeast of the Capitol building. On New Year's Eve, District of Columbia Mayor Muriel Bowser requests a limited National Guard deployment as downtown merchants began boarding up their businesses. Damn. So they knew what was coming. So dystopian, so sad in the Capitol. The Berkeley Research Group, hired by the Trump campaign to investigate whether there had been voter fraud, had found nothing. And at some point during the last few days of December, they reported this to Trump and Meadows on a conference call. Trump signs his fraud allegations in his lawsuit against Georgia, and Eastman helps him file it, even though Eastman acknowledges in an email that Trump knows some of these allegations are false. To reserve a room for January 6, 2021, at Trump's D.C. hotel, customers are shown a price of $8,000. Okay. Friday, January 1st, 2021, National Park Service grants a permit for the First Amendment rally March for Trump at the Ellipse to Women for America First, chaired by Amy Kremer, co-founder of Women for Trump, with an estimated attendance of 5,000. Trump tweets the date and time of the January 6th rally. He then retweets a supporter who wrote, "The cavalry is coming, Mr. President. January 6th, Washington, D.C." To which Trump responds, "A great honor." Trump phones Pence and tells him his refusal to participate in the scheme is too honest. You're being too honest. On a conference call with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, that's also, so that too is what we listen to, I guess. This is the one we listen to. Trump claimed that we have won the election in Georgia, and he demanded from Raffensperger, "I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than the 11,779 vote margin of defeat we have because we won the state." He warned Raffensperger that he was taking a big risk by not signing on to the false claim of a Trump victory. 13 U.S. senators, including Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, along with 100 Republicans, members of the House, vow to object to the election certification. Ted Cruz was part of the conspiracy also, and he needs to be brought to justice as well. Amy Kremer of Women for America First announces a rally at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, starting at 7 a.m. Carol Corbin, DOD, texts United States Capitol Police, Deputy Chief Sean Gallagher, Protective Services Bureau to determine whether USCP is considering a request for National Guard soldiers for January 6th. I hate all of this. They are so openly slimy and incompetent and corrupt. Why is our country incapable of stopping this? I don't know. It's unacceptable and it needs to be rectified. I don't know what else to tell you. It's really fucked up. It's very upsetting. And something needs to be done about it. A lot of things need to be done about it. Trump announces that he will be at the Ellipse rally. Trump orders recently appointed Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller to do whatever was necessary to protect the demonstrators on January 6th. Trump falsely claims that Raffensperger didn't address his fraud allegations. Dustin Stockton, a former Breitbart employee helping to plan the Ellipse event, helps move speakers to the January 5th rally to make room for Trump to speak at the Ellipse rally. At 1 p.m., protests at the U.S. Capitol is added to the January 6th rally announcement. on the March to Save America website. An internal Capitol Police intelligence report warns that enraged protesters flanked by white supremacists and extreme militia groups are likely to arrive in Washington armed for battle and target Congress on January 6th. The National Park Service issues a permit to rally to revival for the January 5th rally in Freedom Plaza. The permit notes that there is no march associated with the event. In a heated Oval Office meeting, Trump pushes his plan to install Jeffrey Clark as head of the DOJ. Clark, the top energy lawyer at DOJ, supports Trump's claims of election fraud. Officials from the DOJ and White House tell Trump they do not support this plan, and some issue ultimatums. Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, his deputy Richard Donahue, and Office of Legal Counsel head Stephen Engel all threaten to resign if Trump installs Clark. Clark discusses the scheme with the deputy White House counsel, Patrick Philbin. Philbin warns him that Trump can't simply seize power, as Americans will riot. Clark replies that the Insurrection Act could be used to quell the protests. Yeah, they want to kill you if you stand up against them. They're fucking criminals. Yeah, too many fucking Daves in the country, too many fucking Pauls in the country. You know, that part of the overall thing too is we need to be better in this country, right? And pandering to idiots, pandering to MAGA, trying to pick MAGA voters off by appealing to their emotions is not good. That's not going to save the country. They need to be better. The American voter needs to be better, not be a piece of shit, not be a stupid idiot, not be a hateful piece of shit who wants to kill so many people in this country, who hates democracy, who hates the First Amendment, who hates the right to vote. These people are so un-American, and there needs to be some sort of culling. It's ridiculous. Fucking absurd. Pence asked this, like, look at what's at stake. We need to be better as Americans. Pence asked the Senate parliamentarian if there were any other electors whose votes he should consider during the certification. In August 2023, Pence told NBC that he asked her this because he had heard rumors in the newspaper of alternate electors and that he doesn't recall if the White House had directly informed him of the scheme. Monday, January 4th. In the morning, John Eastman calls the Arizona House Speaker, admitting he's unfamiliar with the local facts on the ground, yet urging the Arizona House Speaker to use the state legislature to decertify the real electors and let the courts sort it out. The USCP COP Sund asks Senate Sergeant at Arms Michael Stenger and House Sergeant at Arms Paul Irving for authority to have the National Guard to assist with security for the January 6, 2021 event based on briefing with law enforcement partners and revised intelligence. COP Sund's request is denied. SSA and HSAA tell COP Sund to contact General Walker at DC National Guard to discuss the Guard's ability to support a request if needed. COP Sund notifies General Walker of DC National Guard, indicating that the USCP may need DC National Guard support for the January 6, 2021 riots or events, but does not have the authority to request at this time. General Walker advises COP Sund that in an event of an unauthorized request, DC National Guard could quickly repurpose 125 troops, helping to provide DC with COVID-related assistance. Troops would need to be sworn in as USCP. Proud Boy leader Enrique Tarrio, remember, this is the dude that Tim Pool likes to suck off and say never did anything wrong. Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio is arrested in D.C. and charged for burning a Black Lives Matter banner on December 12th and possession of 2 high-capacity firearm magazines that were in his possession at the time of his arrest. Secretary of Defense Miller issued orders which prohibited deploying D.C. Guard members with weapons, helmets, body armors, or riot control agents without his personal approval. There is a conspiracy here. There's a conspiracy here between, between the Defense Secretary Miller to deny the National Guard's assistance. That's them trying to make it less safe. It's ridiculous. It's really upsetting. Honestly, like, I can't believe this shit. It's so upsetting. Rally organizer Kylie Kremer, daughter of Amy Kremer, texted MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, "This stays only between us. We are having a second stage at the Supreme Court again after the ellipse. POTUS is going to have us march there/the Capitol. It cannot get out about the second stage because people will try and set up another and sabotage it. It can also not get out about the march because I will be in trouble with the National Park Service and all the agencies, but the President of the United States is going to just call for it unexpectedly. If anyone tells you otherwise, it's not accurate info. Only myself and name of White House liaison redacted by Inspector General for the Interior Department know the full story of what is actually happening, and we are having to appease many people by saying certain things." And now Mike Lindell knows. He's part of their conspiracy of three. Wild. The fucking CEO of MyPillow, former crackhead. Ridiculous. The National Park Service forecasts the protest crowd size. The Park Service forecast the protest crowd size as 15,000. Nearly 3 years later, the Interior Department's Inspector General concluded that Kylie Kremer's group, Women for America First, had lied to the National Park Service, falsely claiming there would be no march. The Inspector General also concluded that the National Park Service failed to inspect the site, keep photographs documenting what the site originally looked like before the demonstration, advised the backpacks and bags were prohibited, and review WFAF's safety documentation. 1:41 p.m., Mikhail Damelincourt, Jesus, managing director of Trump's D.C. hotel, tweets, "Looking forward to seeing many of you this week." 3:30 p.m., Trump campaign lawyer Matt Morgan emails Kenneth Chesebro to ask if Congress has received all the documents for the slates of fake electors. Chesebro replies that he should ask campaign official Mike Roman. At 4:55, Morgan resends the inquiry to Chesebro and Roman. Roman replies that the Michigan document has not arrived yet and that he plans to use a courier tomorrow. Morgan replies at 8:40 that they may need to enlist the help of a legislator who can deliver to the appropriate place, and that they should discuss it with Rudy Giuliani to make sure this gets done the way he wants. Chesebro tells Roman to write Jim Troupis, and have him check immediately with Senator Ron Johnson. Whether a courier may give the documents to a Johnson staffer who can give them to Pence, at 11:29, Roman tells them that a staffer in Wisconsin should take a morning flight from Chicago to Washington. Roman offers to go to Washington Airport to receive the documents from the courier and bring them to a Johnson staffer. Chesebro replies that he can do this. He advises not to wait until the morning of the 6th. At 11:49, Roman updates Chesebro, "You need Michigan and Wisconsin, so you'll be picking up 2. At 11:54, he adds that Chesebro will need to take them to 2 separate people. Pence took notes at a meeting, recording that Trump repeated false claims, such as he won every state by 100,000 votes, and that there were 205,000 more votes in Pennsylvania than voters. These notes were revealed in the federal indictment of Trump. Representative Liz Cheney is accidentally included on a call between Trump allies, and she listens as they plot to convince Pence to obstruct or delay the vote count." So wild. It's ridiculous, dude. Annika Collier. Also, you guys can tell Matt that he can jump in. I can just edit out the trumpet sound because I have my audio split between my mic and my desktop audio, so it's fine. Anna Collier Navaroli. I'm sorry. I'm skipping shit. Sorry. Shortly after midnight, former Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan texts Liz Cheney, "I worry Pence breaks, but I think he will not." 8:57 a.m., Steve Bannon calls Trump. They speak for 11 minutes. After the phone call, Bannon addresses his podcast audience. "All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. We're on. The point of attack. Strap in." Annika Collier Navaroli, a member of Twitter's safety team, says on an internal call, I am very concerned about what happens tomorrow, especially given what we have been seeing. For months, we have been allowing folks to maintain and say on the platforms that they're locked and loaded, that they're ready to shoot people, that they're ready to commit violence. She later testifies that Twitter was reluctant to suspend Trump because he was one of their most powerful and popular users. At 10 a.m. in Washington, a Wisconsin GOP official lands with the fake elector documents for that state around 1 p.m. Trump campaign aide Michael Brown, whose flight has been booked and paid for by the Trump campaign, lands with the Michigan certificates. Both individuals are scheduled to go to the Trump International Hotel in Washington to give the documents to Chesbrough. Chesbrough and Brown together walk to the Longworth office building and hand off the documents to a staffer for a Pennsylvania GOP lawmaker. In the morning, thousands of Trump supporters gather at Freedom Plaza near the White House in advance of planned protests against the certification of Joe Biden as president-elect. The first rally is the March to Save America from 1 to 2 p.m., then Stop the Steal from 3:30 to 5 p.m., followed by the 80% Coalition from 5 to 8:30 p.m. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund holds a teleconference with top law enforcement and military officials from D.C., including the FBI, U.S. Secret Service, and the National Guard. Sund later wrote, "No entity provided any intelligence indicating that there would be a coordinated violent attack on the United States Capitol by thousands of well-equipped armed insurrectionists." U.S. House Representative Zoe Lofgren holds a teleconference with Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund and House Sergeant-at-Arms Paul Irving. Sund tells Lofgren that the National Guard is on standby and that Capitol Police are well-staffed and prepared for the protests. After speaking with Representative Lofgren, Sund reiterates to Representative Tim Ryan that Capitol Police are prepared. D.C. National Guard Commanding Major William J. Walker receives news from Secretary of the Army Ryan McCarthy stating that he must seek approval from McCarthy and Defense Secretary Miller before preparing to respond to a civil disturbance. Previously, he had authority to respond without first seeking permission. Yeah, so they're intentionally trying to stop the National Guard's ability to respond to the protests. So there is a conspiracy. At least 10 people are arrested during the evening and into Wednesday morning, several on weapons charges. 3:56 p.m. A guest in Trump's D.C. hotel posts a photo of herself in the lobby with Phil Waldron. Federal Protective Service officers notice protesters trying to camp on federal property. D.C. Mayor Bowser writes letters to Acting Secretary Miller and other authorities that the district government is not requesting further operational help in managing the expected protest crowd. Representative Jim Jordan forwarded a text message to Mark Meadows that said, on January 6, 2021, Vice President Mike Pence, as president of the Senate, should call out all electoral votes that he believes are unconstitutional and no electoral votes at all, in accordance with guidance from the founding father Alexander Hamilton and judicial precedents. No legislative act, wrote Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist number 78, contrary to the Constitution can be valid. The court in Hubbard v. Lowe reinforced this truth, that an unconstitutional statute is not a law at all, is a proposition no longer open to discussion. Okay? Shit. Following this rationale, an unconstitutionally appointed elector, like an unconstitutionally enacted statute, is no elector at all. Pipe bombs were placed outside the Washington, D.C. offices of the RNC and DNC national headquarters between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m. According to the FBI, the bombs were found the next day. Surveillance shows video of the suspect who, as of 2025, remains unidentified. So that's actually been updated. We actually do have an update from that. And that dude was I believe he was arrested, right? And tried, or he's being tried now. We just read up about that recently. So that there is some news on that. Trump made several calls to his associates at the Willard Hotel, where a command center or war room had been established in a set of rooms and suites. Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, Bannon, Eastman, and Boris Epstein led the team. Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, and Bernard Carrick were also present. Trump called to tell them that Pence was refusing the Pence card strategy that Eastman had proposed earlier in the day in an Oval Office meeting. He discussed ways to delay the certification in order to get the alternate slates of electors for Trump sent to Congress, as he, Giuliani, and Eastman had discussed by conference call with 300 state legislators on January 2nd. Trump discussed some topics only with lawyers at the Willard so as to preserve the confidentiality afforded by the attorney-client privilege. 9:46 p.m., Steve Bannon calls Trump. They speak for 6 minutes. 10 p.m., Kayleigh McEnany texts Elliot Gazer at approximately this time, asking him whether Pence has the power to object to the election results. She later told the January 6th committee that she was curious about the possibility because that day or the day before, she had overheard Trump discussing it in the Oval Office with an outside attorney whom she believed was John Eastman on speakerphone, while Corey Lewandowski listened in person in the Oval Office. Attack on the Capitol. At noon, Trump began an over 1 hour speech at the Ellipse, encouraging protesters to march to the U.S. Capitol. At 12:49, Capitol Police responded to reports of an explosive device later identified as a pipe bomb. At 12:53 p.m., 18 minutes before Trump's speech ended, rioters overran police on the west perimeter of restricted Capitol grounds. At 2:13 p.m., rioters first gained entry to the interior of the Capitol after smashing windows on the Senate wing near S139. So he's still giving the speech while this is going on. The riots are all, let's see. Yeah, so 18 minutes before the speech ended, rioters overran police on the west perimeter. So this idea that, I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't even paying attention, like that's such bullshit. It happened while he was still speaking. And an hour after that, the rioters first gained entry into the interior. At 2:44 p.m., Capitol police officers inside the speaker's lobby adjacent to the House chamber shot and killed rioter Ashley Babbitt Good as she climbed through a broken window of a barricaded door. Fucking scumbag traitor. That's what they all deserve. Minutes later, Governor of Virginia Ralph Northam activated all available assets of the state of Virginia, including the Virginia National Guard, to aid the U.S. Capitol, although the Department of Defense still had not authorized it. By 3:15 p.m., assets from Virginia began rolling into D.C. An hour later, at 4:17 p.m., a video of Trump was uploaded to Twitter in which he instructed, "You have to go home now." 15 minutes later, Secretary Miller authorized the D.C. National Guard to actually deploy. Yeah. Fucking wow. Okay. So this is a breakdown of those events. At 1 a.m., Trump tweets, "If Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency." 1 a.m. 1:13 a.m., Ali Alexander, Stops the Steal organizer, tweets, "First official day of the rebellion." 3:23 a.m. What sounds like sedition to me. 3:23 a.m. Ron Watkins, image board administrator and prominent QAnon figure, posts a tweet accusing Vice President Mike Pence of orchestrating a coup against Trump. He also linked to a blog post which called for the immediate arrest of Pence for treason. 6 a.m. Unidentified individuals construct a gallows outside the Capitol, leaving off crossbeam and noose. 6:29 a.m., Stuart Rhodes reminds the Oath Keepers that blades over 3 inches are illegal in the city. He tells them to keep the knives low profile. 7:25 a.m., the National Park Service observes that people are hiding bags in trees to bypass inspection. 7:29 a.m., Courtney Holland, who later became communications director for the Republican Senate Committee in Nevada, tweets that she is walking to the Stop the Steal rally with Scott Presler, Megan Barth, and Rose Tennant. Those 3 people are scheduled to speak later at a different rally at the Capitol. 7:30 a.m., White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows texts Representative Jim Jordan, "I have pushed for this, but is not sure if it is going to happen," referring to Pence overturning the election. 8:06 a.m., Trump tweets a false allegation of election fraud. 8:07 a.m., Secret Service counter-surveillance agents report that members of the crowd are wearing ballistics helmets, body armor, and carrying radio equipment and military-grade backpacks. 8:17 a.m., Trump tweets allegations of vote fraud and asks Pence to delay the electoral count. States want their correct votes to correct their votes, which they know were based on irregularities and fraud, plus corrupt process never received legislative approval. All Mike Pence has to do is send them back to the states and we win. Do it, Mike. This is a time for extreme courage. I wish those insurrectionists actually managed to kill people. Fuck. That's not me. That's the chatter. Just crazy seditious chatter. I think the aftermath would have been much harsher for Trump, and these people had a congressman. Well, there's a few congressmen who probably should. Never mind. Trump tweets a request for Republican Party officials to delay the electoral count. Rallies, 9 a.m. At the start time on permit for First Amendment rally, March for Trump speeches. The Save America rally, March to Save America begins. Above the podium, the ellipse are banners for Save America March. Representative Mo Brooks from Alabama makes a speech about kicking ass, asking, "Will you fight for America?" 9:02 a.m. Trump asks the switchboard operator to call Pence, who doesn't answer. Based. 9:24 a.m. Trump has an approximately 10-minute phone call with Representative Jim Jordan. As of late 2023, Jordan has not said what the call was about. 9:45 a.m. A Federal Protective Service liaison officer informs the Capitol Police that more than the permitted 30,000 protesters are expected at the ellipse. The Freedom Plaza permit was increased from 5,000 to 30,000, and the protest outside the Sylvan Theater is permitted for 15,000, according to Newsweek. 6 times as many protesters, as many as 120,000, would show up on the mall on January 6th, according to classified numbers still not released by the Secret Service and the FBI, but seen by Newsweek. 9:52 a.m. Trump has a 26-minute phone call with speechwriter Stephen Miller about his planned speech for the Save America rally later that day. You know, I knew we weren't going to get through this article without Stephen Miller coming up. Now he's arguably the most powerful man in the country. 10 a.m. Before this time, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Tony Ornato informs Trump that authorities have spotted armed individuals at the crowd gathering at the ellipse. Ornato explained to Trump that some of his supporters have weapons that they don't want confiscated by the Secret Service, and thus they refused to pass through the magnetometers and had not drawn close to the ellipse where Trump was scheduled to speak at 11 a.m. 10:15, around this time, Tony Ornato, along with Cassidy Hutchinson's, who was an aide to Mark Meadows, informed Meadows about the armed Trump supporters. 10:30 a.m., Benjamin Phillips splits from his group to Park, not reuniting, but later dying from a stroke at George Washington University Hospital. 10:30 a.m., 200 to 300 Proud Boys started their march down the National Mall towards the U.S. Capitol. 10:47 a.m., Rudy Giuliani begins a speech in which he calls for trial by combat. 10:58 a.m., a Proud Boys contingent leaves the rally and marches towards the Capitol building. According to later testimony, a couple hundred Proud Boys began walking east, down the mall, towards the Capitol at approximately 10:30. 11 a.m., the ellipse located south of the White House is filled with Trump supporters. 11:06, there is no official record of President Trump receiving or placing a call between 11:06 and 6:54 p.m. Representative Elaine Luria stated at a public hearing a year later. The start time of the absence has also been reported as 11:17 a.m. However, still later, prosecutors said they had obtained data from a cell phone Trump was using on the day of the attack, including when he was using Twitter and what other websites he visited. 11:23 a.m., according to the final report of the House committee, 3 men in fatigues from Broward County, Florida, brandished AR-15s in front of MPD officers on 14th Street and Independence Avenue. MPD advised over the radio that one individual was possibly armed with a Glock at 14th Street and Constitution Avenue, and another was possibly armed with a rifle at 15th Street and the Constitution Avenue around 11:23 a.m. So remember that, because there's this lie. There's a lie that people are okay. I see what you got there. There's a lie that people say that it wasn't an armed insurrection. Nobody there had guns. Fucking lie. Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller participates in a tabletop exercise on the Department of Defense contingency response options for the D.C. protests. The motorcade of Vice President-elect Kamala Harris arrives at DNC headquarters, passing through its garage. Law enforcement will, at 1:07 p.m., discover a pipe bomb is in the garage only several yards away from where her motorcade passed. They will evacuate Harris 7 minutes later, and they will finish dismantling the bomb at 2:31 p.m. 11:46 a.m. Well, now I'm going to have to go back and remember to edit that out. So, fuck it. 11:46 a.m., some Proud Boys, including Joe Briggs and Ethan Nordine, are gathered where Trump is about to speak. Approximately at 11:50, from backstage of the Ellipse, Trump could see that TV viewers would perceive the venue as not filled to capacity. That was because about half of his 53,000 supporters refused to be screened for weapons by passing through the magnetometers and thus had not entered the area. Trump yelled as Cassidy Hutchinson would later testify, "I don't fucking care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the fucking mags away. Let my people in. They can march on the Capitol from here. Take the fucking mags away." 11:57 a.m., President Trump begins his over 1 hour speech. He repeats allegations that the election was stolen, criticizes Mike Pence by name half a dozen times, though this wasn't part of his prepared remarks, accuses fellow Republicans of not doing enough to back up his allegations, and states he will walk with the crowd to the Capitol. Yeah, okay. 12 p.m. A Federal Protective Service briefing email reports that about 300 Proud Boys are at the Capitol. A man in a tree near the Ellipse is holding what looks like a rifle, and some of the 25,000 people around the White House are hiding bags in bushes. 25,000 people hiding bags in bushes. That's insane. The email warns that the Proud Boys are threatening to shut down the downtown water system. Between 12 and 1 p.m., the National Park Service detains someone with a rifle. 12:05 p.m., Representative Paul Gosar tweets a demand for Biden to concede by the next morning. 12:06 p.m., Trump tells the crowd, "I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard." 12:20 p.m., a Federal Protective Service officer writes in an email, "POTUS is encouraging the protesters to march to the Capitol grounds and continue protesting there." 12:26 p.m., Pence arrives at the Capitol. 12:28 p.m., a Federal Protective Service officer reports 10 to 15,000 people moving towards the Capitol down Pennsylvania Avenue, Constitution, and Madison Avenues. Shortly after 12:30 p.m., Senator Ron Johnson's aide, Sean Riley, texts Pence aide Chris Hodgson, telling him that Johnson needs to hand something to the vice president. Please advise. Hodgson asks, "What is it?" Riley says alternate slates of electors for Michigan and Wisconsin because archivists didn't receive them. Hodgson replies, "Do not give that to him." 12:30 p.m., crowds of pro-Trump supporters gather outside the U.S. Capitol building. 12:45 p.m., FBI, Capitol Police, and ATF responded to the pipe bomb found outside the RNC headquarters, which had been planted the night before. Proud Boys arrive at the Peace Monument northwest of the Capitol. 12:49 p.m., Capitol Police respond to a report of a possible explosive device as at the RNC headquarters, which is later identified as a pipe bomb. A second pipe bomb at the headquarters of the DNC would be found at 1:07 p.m. Buildings next to these headquarters are evacuated. Authorities later described the pipe bombs as viable, but they never detonated. A police sweep of the area identifies a vehicle which held one handgun, an M4 carbine assault rifle with loaded magazine, and components for 11 Molotov cocktails with homemade napalm. Around 6:30 p.m., the driver was apprehended, carrying 2 unregistered handguns as he returned to the vehicle. He is not suspected of planting the pipe bombs. As of 2024, it remains unknown who... now we know. In 2025, we do know who planted them. Joe Briggs and Ethan Nordine, again, are caught on video in the crowd outside the Capitol. 12:52 p.m., some Oath Keepers, including Jessica Watkins, leave the Ellipse. 12:53 p.m., Rioters overwhelmed police along with outer perimeter west of the Capitol building, pushing aside temporary fencing. Notably, Ryan Samsel, convicted in 2024, took off his jean jacket, flipped his Make America Great Again hat backwards, and began ripping down the bike racks that were used to form a line of defense, as reported by NBC5 Dallas Fort Worth. This threw Capitol Police Officer Caroline Edwards backwards. She was briefly knocked unconscious. Some protesters immediately follow toward the Capitol, while others, at least initially, remain behind and admonish the others. Don't do it, you're breaking the law. 12:57 p.m., Federal Protective Service officers report that the Capitol Police barricade on the west side of the Capitol building has been breached by a large group. By 1:03 p.m., a vanguard of rioters have overrun 3 layers of barricades and have forced police officers to the base of West Capitol steps. Homemade napalm is insane. Yeah, I know. I know, dude. I don't understand. 12:58 p.m., Chief Sund asked House Sergeant-at-Arms Paul D. Irvine and Senate Sergeant-at-Arms Michael C. Stenger to declare an emergency and call for the deployment of the National Guard. Irving and Stenger state... Yeah, but the National Guard gets called to fucking L.A. and Chicago and shit for nothing. Irving and Stenger state they will forward the request up their chains of command. Soon afterward, aides to congressional leaders arrive in Stenger's office and are outraged to learn that he has not yet called for any reinforcement. Phone records obtained at the Senate hearings reflect that Sund first reached out to Irvine to request the National Guard at 12:58 p.m. on the day of the attack. Sund then called the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms at the time, Michael Stenger, at 1:05 p.m. Sund repeated his request in a call at 1:28 p.m. and then again at 1:34 p.m., 1:39 p.m., and 1:45 p.m. that day. The Capitol Police Board, consisting of the architect of the Capitol, the House Sergeant-at-Arms, and the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, have the authority to request the National Guard to the Capitol, but had made the decision 3 days earlier not to do so. What the fuck? 1 p.m. Senators and Vice President Pence walk to the House chamber. U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund calls D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Conti, who deploys 100 officers to the Capitol complex, the earliest arriving within 10 minutes. 1:02 p.m., Pence refuses to go along with Trump's plan to pick and choose electors and tweets a letter stating in part, "It is my considered judgment that my oath to support and defend the Constitution constrains me from claiming unilateral authority to determine which electoral votes should be counted and which should not." Pence had not shown it to the White House counsel in advance. 1:05 p.m., Congress meets in joint session to confirm Joe Biden's electoral victory. Acting Secretary of Defense Miller receives open-source intelligence reports of demonstrators moving towards the U.S. Capitol. 1:07, authorities respond to the headquarters of the DNC following the discovery of the second pipe bomb. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is inside. She has been in the building for over an hour and a half and must now be evacuated. 1:10 p.m., Trump ends his speech by urging his supporters to march upon the Capitol building. "If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. We're going to try and give them, Republicans, the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. The Democrats are hopeless. They never vote for anything, not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country." Dude. It's so infuriating that this is the president now. I can't believe it. I don't understand how this was allowed to. It's so frustrating. It's such a failure of so many people in this country that he's back in there. I don't get it. I'll never get it. It's absurd. It really is. I'm just speechless over it, really. 1:11 p.m. First, MPD officers arrive at Lower West Plaza to confront rioters approaching the Capitol. At 1:12 p.m., Representative Paul Gosar and Senator Ted Cruz object to certifying the votes made in the 2020 United States presidential election in Arizona. The joint session separates into House and Senate chambers to debate the objection. Ted Cruz needs to be held accountable. He needs to be brought to justice. Fuck Ted Cruz. He's a treasonous piece of shit, traitor to this country. 1:14 p.m. Due to the pipe bomb, Vice President-elect Harris is evacuated. 1:17 p.m., Trump's motorcade leaves the ellipse. As Trump later recalled for journalist Jonathan Karl, I was going to go to the Capitol, and then the Secret Service said, you can't. The Secret Service drives him back to the White House against his wishes. Upon being denied transportation to the Capitol, Trump behaved angrily, according to multiple witnesses who testified for the House committee. However, according to the driver, in his testimony nearly 2 years later, Trump never grabbed the steering wheel. I didn't see him, lunge to try to get into the front seat at all. 1:19 p.m., Trump's motorcade arrives at the White House. 1:21 p.m., Trump enters the White House. The presidential daily diary contains no information for the period between 1:21 and 4:03 p.m. Representative Elaine Luria stated at a public hearing a year later the chief White House photographer wanted to take pictures because it was, in her words, very important for his archives and for history, but she was told no photographs. Trump watches TV from 1:25 to 4:03 p.m. A White House employee breaks the news to Trump that a TV network did not broadcast the entirety of his speech in favor of footage of the Capitol riot. When the employee tells him roughly they're rioting down there at the Capitol, Trump says, "Oh, really?" and asks to see it on TV. As they walk to the Oval dining room, the employee takes off Trump's outer coat, brings the TV into the dining room, rewinds it to the beginning of Trump's speech rather than the live coverage, and hands Trump the remote. The employee leaves briefly and returns with a Diet Coke, at which time Trump is still watching the TV coverage, as told by the White House employee when interviewed by the January 6th House Select Committee. According to the final report of the January 6th House Select Committee, here's what President Trump did during the 187 minutes between the end of his speech and when he finally told rioters to go home. For hours, he watched the attack from his TV screen. His channel of choice was Fox News. He issued a few tweets, some of his own inclination and some only at the repeated behest of his daughter and other trusted advisors. He made several phone calls, some to his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, some to members of Congress about continuing their objections to the electoral certification, even though the attack was well underway. Here's what President Trump did not do. He did not call any relevant law enforcement agency to ensure they were working to quell the violence. He did not call the Secretary of Defense. He did not call the Attorney General. He did not call the Secretary of Homeland Security. And for hours on end, he refused the repeated requests from nearly everyone who talked to him to simply tell the mob to go home. Trump's aides confirmed that he watched the television coverage, but Trump himself has refused to admit doing so. 2 months after the attack on the Capitol, he told journalist Jonathan Karl, "When I get back to the White House, I wanted to go back to the Capitol. I was thinking about going back during the problem to stop the problem, doing it myself. Secret Service didn't like that idea too much." 1:25 p.m., he enters the Oval Office private dining room and stays there, watching Fox News until after 4 p.m. 3 months later, he acknowledges it. Yeah. White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham texts First Lady Melania Trump, "Do you want to tweet that peaceful protests are the right of every American, but there is no place for lawlessness and violence?" She immediately responds, "No." Melania Trump didn't tweet at all on the day of the attack and did not tweet to condemn the violence until 5 days later. So she's part of it too. Fuck her too. Actually, deport her ass too. Fuck her. 1:26 p.m. U.S. Capitol Police order evacuation of at least 2 buildings in the Capitol complex, including Cannon House Office Building and the Madison Building of the Library of Congress. 1:30 p.m. Capitol Police are overwhelmed and retreat up to the steps of the Capitol. Lawmakers see the police in the halls. Large numbers of Trump supporters march from the ellipse a mile and a half away down Pennsylvania Avenue towards the Capitol. 1:34 p.m. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser requests via phone that Army Secretary Ryan D. McCarthy provide an unspecified number of additional forces. 1:35 p.m. in Senate deliberations, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell warns that refusing to certify the election results under false pretenses would push American democracy into a death spiral. 1:39 p.m. the White House switchboard connects with Rudy Giuliani for 3 minutes and 53 seconds. 1:49 p.m. Capitol Police Chief Sund requests still didn't vote to impeach. Yeah, I know he didn't. We'll get to that. Capitol Police Chief Sund requests immediate assistance for D.C. National Guard Commander Major General William J. Walker. Major General Walker loads guardsmen onto buses in anticipation of receiving permission from the Secretary of the Army to deploy. Trump tweets a video replay of the Ellipse rally where he'd wrapped up his speech a half hour earlier. 1:50 p.m. D.C. Metropolitan Police on scene. Incident Commander Robert Glover declares a riot. Economist E.G. Antoni walked through the crowd in a restricted area on the west side of the Capitol. He was never charged with the crime. In August 2025, Trump nominated him to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 1:51 p.m. Trump supporter Alex Jones speaks from a bullhorn to the crowd on the west side, exhorting them to remain peaceful and to not fight the police. He directs them to the other east side, where he claims they have a permit and stage. Radio talk show host and former FEMA director Michael D. Brown tweets the baseless claim that the people breaching the Capitol security are likely Antifa, Black Lives Matter protesters, or other insurgents disguised as Trump supporters, and suggests the attacks could be a psychological warfare operation. The audacity. I agree he's less evil, Alex Jones, but still a piece of shit who participated in this. The audacity of them inciting this, commanding them to go down there and do this, and then pretending like it's a psyop by the deep state or whatever. 1:54 p.m. Todd Herman, guest hosting the Rush Limbaugh show. God, he wasn't dead by now. Informs his large national radio audience. He was, right? Didn't Rush Limbaugh die during Trump's first term? I could have sworn. Informs his large national radio audience. I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah, he died. Wow, he died weeks after this. Damn. That the people breaching security are not Trump supporters. 1:55 p.m. Secret Service notified they are not going to the Capitol after holding the motorcade of the White House for possibly doing so. 1:58 p.m. along the east side of the Capitol, a much smaller police presence retreats from a different mob, removing a barrier along the northeast corner of a building. Oath Keepers Kenneth Harrelson, later charged with sedition, and Jason Dolan had arrived at the east side of the Capitol shortly before 2 p.m. 1:59 p.m. Chief Sund receives the first reports that rioters had reached the Capitol's doors and windows and were trying to break in. Crossbar and noose added to gallows. 2 p.m. The mob removes the last barrier protecting the east side of the Capitol. Alex Jones, rounding the north side of the Capitol, moves from the west side to the east side. 2:03 p.m. The White House switchboard connects with Rudy Giuliani for 8 minutes. Kevin Greeson is declared dead after suffering a heart attack outdoors on the Capitol grounds. 2:06. Rioters breach the new police line on the east side of the Capitol and go upstairs to the Columbus doors, aka Rotunda doors. Jones' camera crew negotiates with UCCP officers. 2:10 p.m. The mob west of the Capitol chase police up the steps, breaching the final barricade and approach an entrance directly below the Senate chamber. House Sergeant-at-Arms Irving calls Chief Sund with formal approval to request assistance from the National Guard. 2:11 p.m. Rioter Dominic Pizzola, using a stolen plastic police riot shield, breaks a window on the northwest side of the Capitol in the Senate wing of the building. 2:12 p.m. Michael Sparks, wearing a tactical vest, climbs through the window Pizzola broke, though other rioters yell at him not to do so, becoming the first rioter to enter the Capitol. A police officer pepper sprays him in the face. Why? Why use pepper spray? But this does not stop him. Yeah, you should have used... Once inside, he opens a door for the others. That's why his fucking face... The second he stuck his stupid treasonous face through the window. Police begin dismantling a pipe bomb outside DNC headquarters. 2:13 p.m. Entries in a National Security Council chat convey that 2 windows have been kicked in and Capitol is breached. Vice President Pence is removed from the Senate chamber by his lead Secret Service agent, Tim Geibels, who brings him to a nearby office about 100 feet away from the landing. The Senate is gavelled into recess. 2:14 p.m. Sparks and other rioters chase a lone Capitol police officer, Eugene Goodman, up northwest stairs where there are doors to the Senate chamber in both directions, as police inside the chamber attempt to lock the doors. The mob gets within 40 feet of the vice president's hiding place to which he escaped 1 minute earlier but does not catch sight of him. Officer Goodman leads the mob to back up in front of a set of Senate doors while senators inside attempt to evacuate. Proud Boy Joe Biggs enters the Capitol building. Representative Gosar speaks to the House against certifying Arizona's electoral votes. Federal Protective Service officers report that the Capitol has been breached. 2:15. Rioters use a hammer to break open a door. 2:16. Federal Protective Service officers report that the House and Senate are being locked down. 2:18. An official warns in a National Security Council chat that the VP may be stuck at the Capitol if security doesn't reach a decision to move him within 2 to 3 minutes. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is removed from the chamber by her protective detail. Representative Gosar continues addressing the House despite the confusion while Ranking Member Jim McGovern steps in as Speaker. The House recesses. 2:20 p.m. The National Security Council chat reports the breach of second floor and Senate door. 2:22 p.m. Army Secretary McCarthy has a phone call with Mayor Bowser, D.C., Deputy Mayor John Falsiccio, Director of the D.C. Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, Christopher Rodriguez, and leadership of the Metropolitan Police, in which additional DCNG support is requested. 2:23 p.m. Rioters attempt to breach the police line formed by barricades of bicycle racks. As a police lieutenant sprays the crowd with a chemical substance, rioter Julian L.E. Cater raises his arm above the mob and sprays a chemical substance toward United States Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who dies the following day from a stroke. A conversation over Washington's Metropolitan Police Department radio. We're starting to get surrounded. They're taking the North Front scaffolding, someone says. Another voice on the radio warns, unless we're getting more munitions, we're not going to be able to hold. A reply, a door has been breached, and people are gaining access into the Capitol. Nancy Pelosi walks through the complex, speaking on a phone. She says that if Congress can't finish the proceedings, the insurrectionists will have had a complete victory. 2:24 p.m. Entries into the National Security Council chat convey that there are explosions on the rotunda steps, and service at the Capitol does not sound good right now. The official who wrote this, when later interviewed by the January 6th House Committee, explained the second comment. The members of the VP detail at this time were starting to fear for their own lives. We came very close to either service having to use lethal options or worse. They're screaming and saying things like, say goodbye to the family. The committee did not reveal the official's name. Cassidy Hutchinson overhears Trump repeatedly use the word hang in a conversation with Mark Meadows prior to his tweet about Pence. President Trump tweets, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate, I forgot this is Trump, or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth. When Twitter reinstated Trump's account in November 2022, this tweet was gone. The U.S. House Select Committee investigating January 6 wrote that this tweet inflamed and exacerbated the mob violence. This assessment was part of the committee's criminal referral of Trump for insurrection. Similarly, the committee wrote in its final report, immediately after this tweet, the crowds both inside and outside of the Capitol building violently surged forward. Outside the building, within 10 minutes, thousands of rioters overran the line of the west side of the Capitol that was being held by the Metropolitan Police Force's Civil Disturbance Unit. The first time in history of the D.C. Metro Police that such a security line had ever been broken. Within an hour after this tweet, Pat Cipollone complained to Mark Meadows that we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be fucking hung. Meadows suggested that there was nothing to do, given that Trump thinks Mike deserves it. Yeah. At some point, Nick Luna, an aide, comes into the dining room and informs Trump that Pence has been moved for his safety. Luna later tells the House Select Committee that he did not recall how Trump responded, and he tells federal investigators that Trump responded, so what? Army Secretary McCarthy ordered staff to prepare movement of the Emergency Reaction Force, which could be ready in 20 minutes. Over the next 3 minutes, rioters breached the East Rotunda doors. Other rioters breached the police line in the Capitol crypt. Vice President Pence had to be evacuated from his Senate office, and Representative McCarthy was evacuated from his Capitol office according to the U.S. House Select Committee on January 6th in the introduction to its final report. 2:26 p.m., D.C.'s Homeland Security Director Chris Rodriguez coordinated a conference call with Mayor Bowser with the chiefs of the Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police and the D.C. National Guard. As the D.C. National Guard does not report to a governor, but to the president, Major General Walker patched in the office to the Secretary of the Army, noting that he would need Pentagon authorization to deploy. Lieutenant General Walter E. Pyatt, Director of the Army Staff, noted that the Pentagon needed Capitol Police authorization to step onto the Capitol grounds. Sund began describing the breach by rioters, but the call became unintelligible as multiple people began asking questions at the same time. Metro Police Chief Robert Conti asked for clarification from Capitol Police Chief Sund. Steve, are you requesting National Guard assistance at the Capitol? To which Sund replies, I am making urgent, immediate requests for National Guard assistance. According to Sund, Lieutenant General Pyatt said, I don't like the visual of the National Guard standing a police line with the Capitol in the background, and that he preferred the Guard relieve police posts around D.C. to allow police to deploy to the Capitol. Sund pleaded with Lieutenant General Pyatt to send the Guard, but Lieutenant General Pyatt said only Army Secretary McCarthy had the authority to approve such a request, and he could not recommend that Secretary McCarthy approve the request for assistance directly to the Capitol. So this guy too. The D.C. officials were subsequently described as flabbergasted at this message. McCarthy would later state that he was not in this conference call because he was already entering a meeting with senior department leadership. Pyatt contests this description of the call, denying that he talked about visuals and stating that he was staying on the conference call while senior Defense Department officials were meeting. The Army falsely denied for 2 weeks that Lieutenant General Charles A. Flynn, the Army Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, Plans, and Training, was in this call. His brother Michael Flynn, a retired Trump national security advisor, had pledged an oath to the QAnon conspiracy theory, though there are no indications that Lieutenant General Flynn shares his brother's beliefs. 2:26 p.m., Trump calls for Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, having misdialed Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama. Lee passes his phone to Tuberville, who informs Trump that Pence had just been evacuated from the Senate chamber. I said, Mr. President, they've taken the vice president out. They want me to get off the phone. I gotta go. He recounted to reporters of his call. After receipt of a call from D.C. Mayor Muriel E. Bowser indicating that the Department of Defense had refused to send assistance to the U.S. Capitol, the Public Safety Secretary of Virginia, Brian Moran, dispatches the Virginia State Police to the Capitol as permitted by mutual aid agreement with D.C. Based. Holy shit, this is making me so angry. Yeah, me too, man. Isn't this insane? This is fucking crazy, isn't it? Base Virginia, though. Nancy Pelosi's motorcade heading to Fort McNair comes within a few hundred feet of the pipe bomb outside the DNC headquarters while police are still dismantling it. Security video shows Secret Service moving the vice president and his family to a new secure location. The House is briefly called back into session. 2:28 p.m., one of Nancy Pelosi's staffers whispered, "They're with, we need Capitol Police, I think. Come into the hallway. They're pounding on the door trying to find her." Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund reiterates his request for the National Guard support to help shore up the perimeter of the Capitol. 2:29, the House goes into recess again. 2:30 p.m., Secretary Miller, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, and Army Secretary McCarthy meet to discuss Capitol Police and D.C. government requests. Shortly before this time, the Washington Times publishes a story by Rowan Scarborough falsely claiming facial recognition company XR Vision identified Antifa members among the crowd at the Capitol. The Times corrects the story the next day after BuzzFeed News reports the XR Vision threatened the Times with legal action over the story. Before the correction, the story amassed 360,000 shares and likes on Facebook. Need cute animal video break? Not yet, guys. We're going to get through the January 6th stuff. I understand it's going pretty long. I think we're almost through this part of it. So we're going to power through this, and then maybe we'll take a break before we do the rest of the news. Yeah, but goddamn. Isn't this insane? Fucking crazy, right? Did you all know all this shit, McChicken? As a Canadian, did you know this insane shit about how our country has been taken over? Actually, we lost in the long run, but they're gonna lose eventually. I take Shanny. You'll get Shanny later, okay? 2:31 p.m. Police finish dismantling the pipe bomb outside DNC headquarters. 2:30 p.m. Fox News anchor Laura Ingraham tweets Chief of Staff Meadows, "Hey Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home." 2:38 p.m. The president tweets, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." 2:41 p.m. Tristan Chandler Stevens, Patrick McCoffey the third, and David Myheffy, Jesus Christ, having scaled the southwest scaffolding and staircase several minutes earlier, fight alongside the mob at the lower west terrace. They try until 3:19 p.m. to enter the building. They later stood trial together and were each convicted and sentenced to prison. 2:42 p.m. Rioters carrying flags walk down the hallways, kicking at office doors, chanting "Defend the Constitution, defend your liberty" and 1776. The Senate chamber is breached by rioters. By this time, Senator Chuck Schumer is in a secure location. They could have had him, honestly. And the Senate is locked down in a secure, undisclosed location, a small auditorium with about 50 chairs. Pelosi stands at the front of the room and asks how to maintain the impression of some security or some confidence that the government can function and that you can elect the president of the United States. Did we go back into session? Someone replies, "We did go back into session, but now apparently everybody on the floor is putting on tear gas masks to prepare for a breach." Pelosi, seeming not to have understood a key phrase, asks the person to repeat it. The person reiterates, "Tear gas masks." Pelosi turns around and says to someone else, "Do you believe this?" Capitol Police radio, "We need an area for the House members. They're all walking over now through the tunnels." 2:44 p.m. Rioter Ashley Babbitt is shot by Capitol Police while attempting to force entry into the Speaker's lobby adjacent to the House chambers by climbing through a window that led to the House floor. Good. At approximately the same time Babbitt is shot, Representatives Mark Wayne Mullen, and Troy Nehls are in the House chamber. The politicians, together with an armed officer, look through a door with a broken glass window and speak to rioters. One of the rioters, Damon Beckley, recorded video. Beckley is later convicted, and his video is made public on the third anniversary of the attack. 2:45 p.m. Federal Protective Service officers report shots fired second floor house side inside the Capitol. Jessica Watkins, later acquitted of seditious conspiracy, and Donovan Crowell, later convicted of conspiracy, enter the Capitol building. Shortly after this time, some people break into Nancy Pelosi's office and scrawl a message for her: "We will not back down." 2:47 p.m. A large group of people presses against an outer door. One says, "Here we go. Here's the next rush." There's a push inside with resistance. 2:49 p.m. After the discussion with his chief of staff, Clark Mercer, the governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam activates all available assets of the state of Virginia, including the Virginia National Guard, to aid the U.S. Capitol. Authorization from the Department of Defense required for legal deployment of Virginia National Guard. It was not granted. Man, Trump aide Robert Gabriel texts POTUS, "I'm sure is loving this." 2:53 p.m. Donald Trump Jr. tweets to Meadows, "He's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is enough." 2:57 p.m. A rioter inches away from the Metropolitan Police officer. Is not enough. So Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., is saying he needs to do more. He needs to do something. A rioter inches away from a Metropolitan Police officer, yells, bring her out here. We're coming in for you. We're coming in if you don't bring her out." The video was presented by prosecutors during the public hearings on the United States House Select Committee on the January 6th attack. 3 p.m. Chuck Schumer, seated with Nancy Pelosi, tells her, "I'm going to call up the effing Secretary of DOD." Then, speaking on the phone to Christopher Miller, acting Secretary of Defense, he says, "We have some senators who are still in their hideaways. They need massive personnel now. Can you get the Maryland National Guard to come too?" Nancy Pelosi then speaks into Schumer's phone, telling Miller she plans to call the D.C. mayor to learn what other backup may have already been called. She credits House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer standing behind her for that advice. 3:04 p.m., Secretary Miller, with advice from senior defense leadership, formally approves activation of the 1,100 soldiers in the DCNG Armed Service Army Secretary DCNG. Army Secretary McCarthy ordered the DCNG to begin full mobilization. However, it will be another hour and a half before Miller approves an operational plan for the DCNG's deployment to the Capitol. Wild. 3:05, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy started a phone call in interview on live TV with WUSA. McCarthy said he had called the president to urge him to calm people down, and in reply, the president had sent out a tweet. Months later, McCarthy would claim to police that, based on the phone call with Trump, it wasn't obvious to him that Trump was aware of the violence inside the Capitol at the time. 3:08, Anton Lunick, Francis Connor, Antonio Ferrigno, three friends who traveled from Brooklyn, enter the Capitol through the Senate wing door. They enter Senator Jeff Merkley's office. 3:09, a rioter walks through the hall singing, "Nancy Pelosi, where are you, Nancy? Nancy, where are you, Nancy? We're looking for you." Someone responds, "She's in jail." The rioter resumes, "Nancy, oh Nancy, 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 where are you, Nancy? We're looking for you, Nancy." 3:09 p.m., former White House Chief of Staff Rance Priebus to current COS Meadows, "Tell them to go home." Fairfax County, Virginia, at 3:10 p.m., Deputy County Executive Dave Rohrer informs county officials that county police are being dispatched to assist Capitol Police in response to a mutual aid request. 3:12 p.m., Lunick, Connor, and Ferrigno walk through the Capitol crypt and exit by climbing out a window. President Trump tweets, "I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you." 3:13 p.m. Fucking insane. I just popped in, but it's January 6th, and that would keep me here forever, and I need to sleep. Okay, right on. 3:15 p.m. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calls the governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, confirms to House Speaker Pelosi that all assets of the state of Virginia, including the National Guard, are being sent to aid the U.S. Capitol. First, assets from Virginia begin rolling into D.C. 3:09 p.m., Army Secretary McCarthy has a phone call with Senator Schumer and House Speaker Pelosi about Mayor Bowser's request. McCarthy explains that a full DCNG mobilization has been approved. 3:21 p.m., Albuquerque Cosper head pulls Officer Michael Fanone again, into the crowd, where Daniel Rodriguez tases Fanone in the neck. In 2022, Head and Rodriguez are sentenced to prison for this. Fanone is carried unconscious back to the tunnel. 3:22 p.m., Nancy Pelosi calls Virginia Governor Ralph Northam and asks if he's discussed sending the Virginia... Yeah, okay, we went through that already. 3:25, Pelosi and Schumer sit together holding a phone and speak to Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen. Pelosi acknowledges that rioters are ransacking our offices, but says she is primarily concerned about personal harm. Schumer suggests that Rosen, in your law enforcement responsibility, persuade Trump to make a public statement to tell his supporters to leave the Capitol. McCarthy has a phone call with Mayor Bowser and Metro Police Chief Conte, reviewing that their request was not denied and that Secretary Miller has approved full activation of the DCNG. 3:32 p.m., Virginia Governor Ralph Northam orders mobilization of the Virginia National Guard forces in anticipation of a request for support, according to the Secretary of Defense timeline. Note inconsistency with statements of Virginia Governor. Statements of Virginia Governor indicate 1. He authorized all forces under his command to help the Capitol before DOD, and 2. DOD only followed after dissemination of his mobilization. Even on January 6th, Chuck is a cuck. Please persuade Mr. Trump. We need to stop it. I know. I'm so upset that like the National Guard should just mowed all these people down. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that this was allowed. I can't believe it. These people are enemies to this country. 3:36 p.m., White House Secretary Kayleigh McEnany tweets that National Guard and other federal forces are headed to the Capitol. 3:37, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan orders mobilization of the Maryland National Guard forces in anticipation of a request for support. Arlington County, Virginia, Acting Police Chief Andy Penn informs county officials that Arlington police are responding to the attack and have been absorbed into the Capitol Police response. 3:39, Senator Schumer implores Pentagon officials tell POTUS to tweet everyone should leave. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer wondered about calling up active duty military. 3:46 p.m., leaders from both parties, including Steny Hoyer and Republican leaders Mitch McConnell, Steve Scalise, and John Thune, who is now the majority leader, huddle around a single phone, appealing to the Department of Defense to send troops with a sense of urgency. The person on the other end says they cannot give a timeline for when the Capitol will be secured. Chief of the National Guard Bureau General Daniel R. Hawkinson has a phone call with the Virginia Adjutant General Timothy P. Williams to discuss support to Washington, D.C., and is informed that Virginia National Guard forces have already been mobilized. You don't know what they're going to call it when it happens again on January 26, 2029? It won't. He's going to be removed before then. Midterms, everyone. The point of this is vote in the midterms. Vote them out. A blue wave. Every single seat swings blue. That's what needs to happen. We need the entire House of Representatives. We really do. We need the entire, everyone in the Senate who's up. Not everyone's up, but we need them all to go blue. That we need to actually do to make sure this never happens again. 3:55 p.m., Jen Hawkinson has a phone call with the Maryland Adjunct General, Major General Timothy E. Gowan, to discuss support to Washington, and is informed that the Guard has already been mobilized. 4:03 p.m., on suggestion of Mark Meadows, Trump goes outside of the Rose Garden so his staff can make a video of him calling for an end to the violence. He refuses the script they give him and performs 3 unscripted takes of a short speech, which his aides record. 4:05 p.m., President-elect Biden addresses the nation, calling on Trump to demand an end to the siege. 4:08 p.m., from a secure location, Vice President Pence phoned Christopher Miller, the acting defense secretary, to confirm the Capitol was not secure and ask military leaders for a deadline for securing the building while demanding that the Capitol be cleared. 4:10 p.m., Army Secretary McCarthy arrives at the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department headquarters. 4:14 p.m., Hope Hicks texts Julie Radford, Ivanka Trump's aide, in one day he ended every future opportunity that doesn't include speaking engagements at the local Proud Boys chapter, and all of us that didn't have jobs lined up will be perpetually unemployed. I'm so mad and upset. We all look like domestic terrorists now. You look like domestic terrorists because you are domestic terrorists. You people are domestic terrorists. This is terrorism. What the fuck are you talking about? Trump speaks, 4:17 p.m. Finally, Trump uploads an unscripted video to his Twitter denouncing the riot but maintaining the false claim that the election was stolen. One of the 3 takes he gave, White House aides chose this one as the most palatable option for distribution. In the video, Trump says, "I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to have respect for our people and law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace." You're very special. Fucking ridiculous. 4:17 p.m. According to the White House committee's that's how he thinks of you, by the way. Like you're retarded children who need to be told, "Oh, good job. Good job. Thank you." He has no respect for any of you who are doing this for him. 4:17, Giuliani began frantically calling the White House line the very minute that the president's video went up on Twitter. Failing to get through, he called back once every minute. 4:17, 4:18, 4:19, 4:20. He managed to get through briefly to Mark Meadows at 4:21 p.m. and then kept calling the White House line at 4:22 p.m., 3 times on 2 different phones at 4:23, 4:24, and once more at 5:05 p.m. 4:18 p.m., Secretary Miller, General Milley, Army Secretary McCarthy, and General Hawkinson discuss availability of National Guard forces located outside of the immediate D.C. metro area. 4:22 p.m., Pelosi speaks to Pence on the phone about how to move forward with the election certification. She wonders if the Republicans could confine it to just one complaint, Arizona, and then we could vote and move forward with the rest of the states. She suspects it may be days before we get to the possible it is possible to enter the Capitol again. Roseanne Boyland is shown in body cam video, collapses and is taken to the hospital where she is later pronounced dead of an amphetamine overdose. Okay. Secretary Miller authorizes DCNG to actually, what a fucking crazy day. Secretary Miller authorizes DC National Guard to actually deploy in support of the U.S. Capitol Police. Yeah. Ridiculous. 4:34 p.m., White House landline places a call to the cell phone of Anton Lunick, a rioter who had entered the Capitol an hour earlier. The call lasts 9 seconds. The call was first publicly disclosed in September 2022 and is the only known call between the White House and a rioter that day. 4:40 p.m., Army Secretary McCarthy has a phone call with Maryland Governor Hogan in which the governor agrees to send Maryland National Guard forces to D.C. Expected the next day. 4:57 p.m., CNN reports that congressional leaders are being evacuated to Fort McNair, a nearby Army base. Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Alexandra Pelosi, films her mother leaving the Capitol. Nancy Pelosi complains that the National Guard was not on the scene. How many times did the members ask, "Are we prepared? Are we prepared?" We're not prepared for the worst. We're calling the National Guard now. It should have been here to start out. The congressional leaders consider reconvening the Electoral College proceedings at Fort McNair. While at Fort McNair, Senator Chuck Schumer speaks to Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy by phone, telling him D.C. has requested the National Guard and it's been denied by the Department of Defense. I'd like to know a good fucking reason why it's been denied. We need them fast. We've all had to. I've never seen anything like this. Let's see. All right. We're almost done, guys. 5 p.m. At some point during the afternoon, Trump tried to call into Lou Dobbs Tonight, which aired every weekday at 5 p.m., but Fox executives decided it would be irresponsible to allow him on the air. 5:07, Giuliani reaches Trump by phone after 50 minutes of failed attempts. They speak for almost 12 minutes over the next 3 hours until Congress reconvenes. Giuliani calls Senators Marsha Blackburn, Mike Lee, Bill Hagerty, Lindsey Graham, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, and Dan Sullivan, as well as Representatives Jim Jordan. On Senator Lee's phone, he leaves a voicemail intended for Senator Tommy Tuber. How do these people keep calling the wrong people? I don't get it. So incompetent. Asking him to raise issues, object to every state, and get a hearing for every state for the purpose of delaying the process, ideally until the end of tomorrow. 5:08, Army senior leaders relay to Major General Walker that Secretary of Defense's permission to deploy to the DC National Guard to the Capitol. 5:20, the first contingent of 155 Guard members dressed in riot gear began arriving at the Capitol for 5:40. 154 National Guard soldiers arrive at the Capitol complex, swear in with the Capitol Police, and begin support operations, having departed the D.C. Armory at 5:02 p.m. Around 5:40 p.m., as the interior of the Capitol is cleared of rioters, leaders of Congress state that they will continue tallying electoral votes. 5:45 p.m., Secretary Miller signs formal authorization for out-of-state National Guard to muster and deploy in support of the U.S. Capitol Police. Around 5:45 p.m., police announced that Ashley Babbitt, the rioter shot inside the Capitol, has died. Good. 5:58 p.m., Pence, calling from the basement of the Capitol where he is standing with the chief of the U.S. Capitol Police, Stephen Sund, talks to Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi by phone. He says that Sund just informed me that you will hear through official channels that the police expect to secure the Capitol soon, and thus Pelosi can expect to hear from Paul Irving, the Sergeant-at-Arms who is your point of contact on security in the House, about the process of re-entering the building so that the leaders can reconvene the House and Senate in about an hour. Pence says he also plans to speak to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Pelosi passes the phone to him. Pence repeats the message and tells Schumer he wants to give him a heads up, although Pence said he's already informed the Senate that Schumer can expect to hear directly from the Sergeant at Arms. I hope that's helpful. I'll let you talk through regular channels, Pence said. Shortly before 6 p.m., Trump shows Nick Luna a draft tweet that begins, "These are the things and events that happen." Luna tells Trump that it makes him sound as though he directed the violence. Trump sends it anyway a few minutes later, because he did direct the violence. 6 p.m. D.C. curfew comes into effect. These are the things and events that happen when a sacred lands... Trump tweets, "These are the things that happen, things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever." When Twitter reinstated Trump's account in November 2022, this tweet was gone. Trump knew exactly what he was doing in making this tweet, the U.S. House Select Committee on January 6 alleged, when criminally referring him for insurrection, especially his White House staffer Nick Luna had warned him not to tweet it since it would imply complicity in the Capitol riot, yet he tweeted it anyways. 6:09, Roseanne Boylan is pronounced dead at a local hospital after collapsing near a tunnel entrance on the west side of the Capitol. 6:14 p.m., Capitol Police, D.C. Metropolitan Police, and the National Guard successfully established a perimeter around the west side of the Capitol. 6:30 p.m., Chief Sund briefs Pence, advising that both chambers could reopen by 7:30. 7 p.m., Facebook Inc. removes President Trump's post from Facebook and Instagram for contributed to rather than diminishing the risk of ongoing violence. 7:02 p.m., Twitter removes Trump's tweets and suspends his account for 12 hours for repeated and severe violations of civic integrity policy. 7:04 p.m., Keith Kellogg emails Mark Short saying, "Finish the Electoral College issue tonight." Short replies 10 minutes later, "That's our plan." 7:13 p.m., members of Congress return to the Capitol. 7:21 p.m., Trump's former campaign manager, Brad Parscale, texts Katrina Pearson saying that the riot was the result of a sitting president asking for civil war. "I feel guilty for helping him win. A woman is dead. If I was Trump and knew my rhetoric killed someone," Pearson replied, "It wasn't the rhetoric." Pearson insisted, "Yes, it was." "No, it wasn't. It was the command to do it." 7:59, Stephanie Grisham, chief of staff of Melania Trump and former White House press secretary, tweets her resignation, becoming the first official to resign post-attack. Congress reconvenes at 8 p.m. The Capitol Police declare the Capitol building to be secure. The Senate reconvenes at 8:06 with Vice President presiding to continue debating the objection to the Arizona electoral count. 8:31 p.m. The Federal Protective Service issues a memo warning that an armed militia group is reportedly traveling from West Virginia to D.C. 8:30, then fucking blow them the fuck up. You're the military, okay? Facebook blocks Trump's page for 24 hours on 8:36. 8:39, Giuliani calls Trump and they speak for 9 minutes. 9 p.m., Speaker Pelosi reopens the House debate. 10 p.m., Officer Brian Sicknick collapses while still on duty during the Capitol. 10:15 p.m., the Senate votes 93-6 against the objection raised by a handful of Republican senators against counting of Arizona's electoral votes. 11:30 p.m., the House votes 303 to 121 to reject the Republican objection to counting Arizona's electoral votes. Also, time unspecified, a tactical team of FBI hostage rescue team was one of the first outside the federal agencies to enter the Capitol. Donald Trump's allies planned for him to give another speech the following day to disavow the violence. Trump rejected several lines from the script and crossed them out. The rejected lines include, "I am directing the Department of Justice to ensure all lawbreakers are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We must send a clear message, not with mercy, but with justice. Legal consequences must be swift and firm. I want to be very clear. You do not represent me. You do not represent our movement." Ivanka Trump testified to the House committee. I'm not sure when those conversations began because they could have started early next morning, but I believe they started the evening of the 6th. Aftermath. Okay. We're almost done, guys. I promise. All right. Thanks for bearing with me. To those of you who have stuck it out on the video, I know it's a long thing. We've been at this for a couple hours already, and we've still got a little bit more to cover after this, but it's important, okay? It's an important day. It's an important moment in American history, and it's important that we know everything that happened, all right? This is the play-by-play of everything, and we need to remember this. This is your history. We all lived through this. It's important to not let them hide this, to not let them pretend like it isn't what it was. Thursday, January 7th, 12:15 a.m., Republican Representatives Scott Perry and Senator Josh Hawley objected to the counting of Pennsylvania's electoral votes, triggering a 2-hour debate in both chambers. So Scott Perry, Josh Hawley, they also need to face justice. 12:55 a.m., the Senate rejects 92-7 the objections raised by a handful of Republican senators against the counting of Pennsylvania's electoral votes. 2:20 a.m., a small number of representatives nearly have a physical confrontation in the House chamber after Representative Connor Lamb, Democrat from Pennsylvania, said the attack on the Capitol by the angry pro-Trump mob earlier in the day was inspired by lies, the same lies you are hearing in this room tonight. Representative Morgan Griffith, Republican from Virginia, objected to Lamb's remarks. The objection was rejected by Speaker Pelosi. Good. Several minutes later, members of both parties have a heated verbal discussion in the middle of the aisle in close proximity, breaking up when Pelosi called for order. 3:10 a.m., the House rejects 282 to 138 the Republican objection against the counting of Pennsylvania's electoral votes. 3:40 a.m., after the objections are rejected, Congress completes the counting of the electoral votes, with Biden winning 306 to 232. Vice President Pence affirms the election results, formally declaring Biden the winner. 3:49 a.m., Dan Scavino tweets, statement by President Donald J. Trump on the electoral certification. Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. I have always said we would continue our fight to ensure that only legal votes were counted. While this represents the end of the greatest first term in presidential history, it's only the beginning of our fight to make America great again. Goddamn. 2:30 p.m. During a televised press conference, Nancy Pelosi asked for the resignation of the U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund, adding, I think Mr. Sund, he hasn't even called us since this happened. Sund submits letters of resignation later that afternoon with a departure date of January 16th. Both sergeant-at-arms are forced to resign as well. 7:10 p.m. Shortly after Twitter unlocked Trump's account, Trump released a video statement condemning the violence at the Capitol, saying that a new administration will be inaugurated and that his focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power to the Biden administration. This was more than 24 hours after his previous speech in the Rose Garden. Fear of being removed from power by the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution was one motivation for Trump to seek the cover of his speech, according to Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony before the January 6th committee. He made multiple stops and starts, requesting Diet Cokes during the recording. In contrast to his usual method of one or two takes, call it a day, White House chief photographer Sheila Craighead testified to the House committee. While verbally workshopping the speech on camera, Trump had commented as an aside to his staff, I don't want to say the election is over. At around 9:30 p.m., Capitol Police Officer Brian D. Sicknick dies after suffering 2 strokes. Francisco J. Diaz, the D.C. medical examiner who performed an autopsy to ascertain the cause of Sicknick's death, said in an interview reported in the Washington Post that he found no evidence of internal or external injury in or on Sicknick's body, nor any evidence that he'd suffered an allergic reaction to chemical irritants. Friday, January 8th, 2021, 10 a.m. Chief Sund is notified by the new acting Senate Sergeant-at-Arms that his departure is to be effective January 8th, not the 16th, as previously agreed upon. Yagananda Pittman is sworn in as acting chief of the U.S. Capitol Police that afternoon. President Trump tweets that he will not attend Biden's inauguration ceremony on January 20th. This is Trump's last tweet before his permanent ban on Twitter the same day. All right, buddy. We're almost through this. Twitter permanently bans Trump from its platform following at least 2 internal meetings that afternoon by Twitter's trust and safety team. Twitter informs the team internally at 6:21 p.m. that Trump's account has been suspended, then announces its decision, citing the risk of further incitement of violence. The ban is lifted by Elon Musk on November 11, 2022, after he gains control over Twitter. Parler, a platform allegedly used to plan the attack, is removed from the Google Play Store after the users on the app allegedly planned further violence at the Capitol. FBI Assistant Director Stephen D'Antonio tells reporters that there is no indication that Antifa members stormed the Capitol. Saturday, January 9th, the flag outside the Capitol is lowered to half staff to pay respect to Officer Sicknick, who died on January 7th after suffering a stroke. Citing posts that risk incitement of violence, Apple removed Parler from its App Store, stating Parler's moderation procedures towards violence inciting speech were insufficient. For similar reasons, Amazon Web Service announces it will terminate the services for Parler through its cloud service servers at 11:59 on January 10th. This will result in Parler's complete shutdown unless the platform can find another hosting service before it is removed from Amazon's servers. Amazon employee group Amazon Employees for Climate Justice had called on the company to terminate web hosting of the platform unless Parler changed its moderation policies after Amazon reported 98 instances of posts featured on Parler that clearly encourage and incite violence. Sunday, January 10th, Caroline Leavitt, who is now the press secretary, having just left her job at the White House press office to work for Representative Elise Stefanik, called a Capitol Hill police officer a hero for keeping rioters away from lawmakers. She would later delete the post. Monday, January 11th, 2:59 a.m., Parler goes offline after being suspended from Amazon. The National Guard is authorized to send up to 15,000 troops to Washington as a security measure to safeguard the Capitol. The FBI bulletin disseminated to the media reports that armed far-right pro-Trump protests were planned at all 50 state capitals and that the United States Capitol from January 17th through the 20th, Joe Biden's inauguration day. Trump and Pence saw each other at a meeting. According to Pence in his memoir, Trump said he just learned that Pence's wife and daughter had been at the Capitol during the attack, and he asked how they were. Trump then wondered aloud, what if we hadn't had the rally? What if they hadn't gone to the Capitol? Adding, it's too terrible to end like this. Tuesday, January 12th, Pence sat for an interview with documentary filmmaker Alex Holder. While on camera, he received an email with information related to the potential use of the 25th Amendment against Trump. Holder's documentary claims the email contained the draft House resolution demanding that Pence invoke the 25th Amendment, but a spokesperson for Pence countered that Pence had already written to Speaker Pelosi rejecting that option, and that in the film, Pence was receiving confirmation that someone had sent his letter to Pelosi. On the 13th, Wednesday the 13th, so a week after the riots, President Trump is impeached for an unprecedented second time by the House of Representatives for the high crime of incitement of insurrection, for inciting violence against the government of the United States. The impeachment article mentions his January 2nd phone call with Brad Raffensperger. The Federal Bureau of Investigation sends out a bulletin advising law enforcement agencies to be cautious when arresting suspects involved in the storming, especially of those who were spotted wearing body armor or other armament during the incident. Sunday, January 17th, Representative Ralph Norman sends a text message to the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, asking him to urge Trump to invoke martial law to prevent Biden's inauguration. Tuesday, January 19th, the Oregon Republican Party passes a resolution condemning the Republican House members who voted to impeach Trump. This resolution claims there is growing evidence that the attack on the Capitol was a false flag operation designed to discredit Trump. Police take a notebook from Oath Keeper Thomas Caldwell's home. It contains an apparent threat against two Georgia poll workers who would later testify. So those were the ones we talked about earlier. In the inauguration of Joe Biden at the United States Capitol, former Vice President Joe Biden is sworn in as the 46th President of the United States. Senator Kamala Harris is sworn in as the 49th Vice President of the United States. Numerous members of the National Guard and the National Guard surrounding states, Capitol Police, the D.C. Police Guard, the closed-off premises. On Wednesday, January 27th, the chief of Metropolitan Police Department announces that a second officer present at the riot died by suicide. The chief also mentions that many other officers are suffering from trauma related to the riot. 3 Oath Keepers are indicted for planning with other Oath Keepers to commit violence at the Capitol on January 6th. February 16th, the New York Times updates its report about Brian Sicknick being killed with a fire extinguisher, as medical experts say he did not die of blunt force trauma. February 19th, 6 additional Oath Keepers are indicted for conspiring to commit violence at the Capitol. April 19th, The Washington, D.C. Medical Examiner's Office announced its findings that the Capitol Police officer Brian Sicknick had died from a stroke, classifying his death as natural, with Sicknick's autopsy producing neither evidence of internal or external injuries, nor evidence of allergic reaction to chemical irritants. May 19th. Initially, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to form an independent bicameral commission to investigate the attack similar to the 9/11 Commission, but Senate Republicans filibustered this plan. June 30th, 2021, the House passes Resolution 503, establishing the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol, forming the United States House Select Committee on January 6th. All Democratic members and 2 Republican members, Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, voted in favor. The committee members were appointed in July. This committee lasted a year and a half through the end of 2022. Guys, we made it. We made it, guys. We've read this entire fucking article. I think it was important to read. They're all complicit. The Republican Party should be forcefully disbanded. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It should be. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. So that's what I was saying the other night. I absolutely agree with that. All right, guys. So just remember all that shit, okay? Remember what we've lived through. Remember what happened. This is not a peaceful protest. A visual archive of January 6, 2021 through the lens of those who were there. So this material includes profanity, violence, and references to suicide. The Proud Boys. So this is what we kind of just read here. This is Trump at the debate telling the Proud Boys to stand down and stand by. We'll skip here to the riot itself because I know you guys are probably sick of this by now, but we're still going to go through how the assault on the Capitol unfolded. When you edit this, put Subway Surfers on the side for people like McChicken. It'll be all right, I think. Yeah. The morning of January 6th, this is the, here.
Let's have trial by combat.
We just read about this is Rudy Giuliani calling for trial by combat.
I'm willing to stake my reputation. The president is willing to stake his reputation.
By this point, your reputation had already been, is completely worthless, but you've tarnished it even further since. You criminal.
On the fact that we're going to find criminality there.
You're the criminal. It's showing you too here. So Save America rally at the Ellipse. You guys can see on the map here. This has a map, so it's for me. A group of Proud Boys gathers near the Washington Monument.
Pace to the Capitol, okay? We're gonna look good. We're gonna do some meet and greet. Just walk, keep your eyes peeled, everything like that.
This is the Proud Boys.
Come on,
marching.
boys, tighten up. Do not let's not fucking yell that. All right. Here's milkshake, man. You know. Idiot. Don't yell it. Do it.
Milkshake. Let's take the fucking Capitol. That's what he yelled, that he told him not to yell.
Walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them.
That's Trump at his rally. So here you can see actually the evidence. So the U.S. Capitol building's evacuated, pipe bomb discovered here. This is showing the pipe bomb, I believe, at the RNC. 12:53 p.m. This is them breaking the barrier outside the Capitol here. Should have been all been, honestly. Disgusting. Pence announced that he would not yield to Trump's pressure and would proceed to certify. So it's at 1:02. That's when he released that statement. The other pipe bomb. Here's a picture for you guys. that was found outside the DNC headquarters now.
Hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have...
So this is Trump towards the end of his speech here at 1:10 p.m.
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Encouraging them to do violence. What is fighting if not violence? You know? Here's a time lapse of the U.S. Capitol. The protests outside. Here's them here. You guys can see them break the window here. Trump tweets out, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done. One minute after he attacked, Trump attacked Pence in a tweet, the Secret Service evacuated Pence. This is what we're watching here, his evacuation. See, now that you guys know all the lore, you can like see it in real time and have that connection with it of something that happens, and you understand now what you're watching. This all happened. This is what we're looking at. Here. $400,000. This is the video. We gotta hang a bunch of... This is the video here. Riders reached a vestibule. Jesus Christ. I can't talk anymore. I've been reading too much. To a door outside the U.S. House chamber, riders broke glass panels of the door and subsequently confronted law enforcement officers trying to protect Congress. A rider recorded this video of the House Chamber Committee as law enforcement points guns at them.
Congressman, we'll do that. Okay? We don't want to fight you. You're honest, hardworking Americans. Choose a side. Fucking Joe. Ever since 2016.
Here's fucking Trump saying, support the police. We love the police. This is, you know, they're sheltering. I think is that Chris Murphy? Who is that? I'm not sure. Peter Welch. Then a congressman from Vermont posted on Twitter that he and other members of Congress were trapped in the House. Treason! This is them breaching into the chamber of the Senate. Treason! 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 God, these idiots. These fucking brainwashed dipshit cultists. Treason! 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 Okay, here we go. This is at 2:44 p.m. A group of riders reached a set of doors leading to another entrance. So this is another. I believe this is yeah.
No! There's a gun! There's a gun! There's a gun! Hey, he's got a gun! He's got a
The weapons of January 6th. Video evidence shows that rioters were armed with multiple weapons, including, in some cases, firearms.
What patriots do? We fucking disarm them, and then we storm the fucking Capitol. Huh?
This man's wielding a crutch to bludgeon an officer with like crutches and hockey sticks. Why aren't you shot? If you attack an officer with a blunt object, they should shoot you. I don't know. This disgusting dipshit. I just hate all these people. Absolute scum of the earth. This is war. How rioters justified political violence.
To do. This is in the Constitution.
Yeah, overthrow your
if the government is no longer for the people, it is your right, it is your duty to overthrow that government and reinstate a new government.
The "Don't Tread on Me" flag.
For the people.
I'm telling you, if Pence cave,
This is Ryan Nichols.
we're gonna drag motherfuckers through the streets. You fucking politicians are gonna get fucking drugged through the streets. Yeah. Because we're not gonna have our fucking shit stolen. We're not gonna have our election, our country stolen.
Just so you like, there's so much here. I'm actually gonna probably link this in the video. You know, we can go through. We're not gonna go through all this, I know, because we've been going for a long time just on this subject alone. But yeah, there's so much here. This is our house. How rioters trashed the Capitol. You can see how rioters broke windows, vandalized offices.
Yo, take laptops, paperwork, take everything. All that shit.
Yeah, they make sure we had good. I got squashed.
Breaking more windows. I need fucking help. How rioters injured officers. Police use water to wash pepper spray and blood out of their eyes of a fellow officer in a hallway of the Capitol.
I got
Come on, let's get you back here. Come on. You all right?
That's broke.
Broke it?
Yeah.
My squad and Ruiz's squad.
All right. I want to get it wrapped up. I need fucking help.
Oh, I got it. Stand up. Fuck it. Stand up, stand up, stand up. I can't help us. Grab him, grab him, grab him. No. No. Bro, I can't fucking see. I can't fucking see.
Don't let this be forgotten. Don't let them whitewash this, especially with what we're going to read here in a minute.
Outside, I was up on the West Terrace as he was, right after he was still giving his speech, and I just had to leave because he was basically just telling people to come down here and rip this place down. Dude, they came down Pennsylvania Avenue. It didn't even take them 30 seconds to go over 3 bike fence and just be. The officers said couldn't do nothing down.
This is this is Trump's video that we read about.
You
here.
heard? We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side.
Shut the fuck up. God, I hate. We're not even gonna read it. Watch it. Fuck him. He's such a piece of shit. Shut up. He shouldn't be. He shouldn't be breathing, let alone president. 6:01 p.m. Donald Trump tweets out, "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and peace. Remember this day forever." Yeah, remember this day forever, guys.
Joseph R. Biden Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes. The votes for
So this is them finally at 8:06 p.m. Pence called the Senate to order, and at 9:02 p.m., Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi called the House to order. The following morning at 3:44 a.m., Congress finally certified the election results. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to link this specific article in the video for you guys, and you can go through it. I recommend you all go through it. You all look through this, see all the violence that's happened, see everything that they're trying to hide and bury, and remember that Trump pardoned these people. Officer who defended the Capitol on January 6th said their struggles linger 5 years after the riot. We'll just briefly go through this article. We're not going to read the whole thing, don't worry. As Trump was inaugurated for the second time on January 20th, 2025, former Capitol Police Sergeant Aquilino Gonell, I don't know, put his phone on Do Not Disturb and left it on his nightstand to take a break from the news. That evening, after Gonell spent time with family and took his dog on a long walk, his phone started to blow up with calls. He had messages from federal prosecutors, FBI agents, and the Federal Bureau of Prisons, all letting him know that the new president had just pardoned about 1,500 people who had been convicted for their actions at the Capitol on January 6th. The pardons included rioters who had injured Gonell as he and other officers tried to protect the building. They told me that the people I testified against were being released from prison, Gonell said, and to be mindful. Gonell was one of the officers who defended the central west front entrance of the Capitol that day as Congress was certifying Democrat Joe Biden's victory, and hundreds of Trump supporters broke into the building, echoing his false claim of a stolen election. Gonell was dragged into the crowd by his shoulder straps as he tried to fight people off. He almost suffocated. In court, he testified about his injuries to his shoulder and foot that still bother him to this day. They have tried to erase what I did. With the pardons and other attempts to play down the violent attack, Gonell said, I lost my career, my health, and I've been trying to get my life back. 5 years since the siege, Gonell and some of the other officers who fought off the rioters are still coming to terms with what happened, especially after Trump was decisively elected for a second term last year and granted those pardons. What a betrayal. Every piece of shit who voted for Donald Trump betrayed these officers, betrayed the country, really, but especially this dude. Their struggle has been compounded by statements from the Republican president and some GOP lawmakers in Congress minimizing the violence that the officers encountered. It's been a difficult year, said Officer Daniel Hodges, a Metropolitan Police Department officer who was also injured as he fought near Gonell. More than 140 police officers were injured during the fighting on January 6th, which turned increasingly brutal as the hours wore on. Former Police Capitol Chief Thomas Manger took over the department 6 months after the riot. He said in a recent interview that many of his officers were angry when he first arrived, not only because of the injuries they suffered, but also they resented the fact that they didn't have the equipment they needed, the training they needed to deal with the unexpectedly violent crowd. Oh, what's up, Elf? Okay, I agreed. I don't rap for dead presidents. I'd rather see... Okay. Getting angry at 2:30 a.m. isn't conducive to my sleeping. Bro, it's been a pretty infuriating few hours here, I think. We've all gone through, fits of anger. It's been what? We read everything that happened leading up to January 6th and January 6th. It's almost over, and Alki promised. No, it's not a crowd. Oh, yeah, I did. And I will play that for sure. Not in the video, though. This is all January 6th stuff. Trump has called the rioters he pardoned, including those who were most violent toward the police, patriots and hostages. He called their convictions for harming the officers and breaking into the building a grave national injustice. So, yeah, we won't look at this too much more here. Quantifying social media predictors of violence during the January 6th Capitol riots using Granger causality. Protests involving brute force are growing in number and are viewed as a likely source of increased collective violence in industrialized nations. Yet our scientific understanding of how violent protests are related to a leader's social media communications during protests remains nascent. Here we analyze new data from the January 6th march on the U.S. Capitol to quantify the links between leadership, social media, and levels of violence using data on thousands of live footage videos, Trump's tweets and rally speech, other rally speeches, and Stop the Steal tweets, We apply Granger regression methods to analyze the links between former President Trump's tweets. We find that Trump's tweets predict bursts in rioters' levels and duration of violence and weapon use. Trump's tweets also, when we know that too, because we got the play-by-play. We saw what he tweeted out and what happened afterwards. We find that Trump's tweets predict bursts in rioters' levels and durations of violence and weapons use. Trump's tweets also predict changes in the volume and sentiments of the Stop the Steal tweets, which in turn explain additional variance in levels of violence and weapons use over the course of the riot. Our findings reveal new patterns of behavior that link in authority figures' online behavior during a protest and the shift from peaceful protesting to violence. Jesus, this is a long ass. All right. We're not gonna, maybe not. Maybe we won't do this one tonight. Although I do feel like this is kind of important. Peaceful protests play a pivotal role in political, legislative, and organizational change by shaping lawmaking agendas and raising awareness about issues. Protests can also become violent, leading to property damage and the loss of life. In recent years, there has been an increased incidence of violent protests. For example, far-right protesters clashed violently with counter-protesters in Charlottesville, Virginia, regarding the taking down of a Confederate statue. This ultimately led to the death of Heather Heyer, a peaceful protester. A clash between Black Lives Matter protesters and an armed militia of counter-protesters during a Black Lives Matter rally in Kenosha, Wisconsin, resulted in the death of 2 protesters and the wounding of a 3rd protester. In 2021, the U.S. officially ranked social movement protests involving brute force and militias as one of the most likely sources of collective violence in the United States. Data. So, yeah, I mean, this is going over like their methodology and shit. And here we address the empirical gap by examining the unique, high-resolution temporal data on the January 6th March on the Capitol. This event generated extensive amounts of real-time social media posts and videotape footage by news agencies and hundreds of persons who were dispersed around the Capitol. At the same time, a full digital recording of social media posts was captured in #StopTheSteal tweets and tweets by former President Trump. Prior to the March on the Capitol, speeches by Rudy Giuliani, Mo Brooks, and President Trump were videotaped along with crowds at the speech. This data was made public by news agencies, the U.S. government, and public and private websites, creating a corpus of data that permits us to quantify the links between leadership's communication on social media and the timing, incidence, and duration of the violence and weapons used during the violent protests. Our analysis uses Granger causality regression and computational social science techniques to make new measurements and tests of strong, weak, and reciprocal predictors of the duration and level of violence and weaponry, as well as the positive feedback loops associated with the duration and escalation of hostility during the Capitol riot. After months of false claims about a rigged 2020 election, thousands of pro-Trump protesters assembled in Washington on January 6th. After listening to the Save America rally speeches, the crowd proceeded to the grounds of the U.S. Congress, where hundreds of protesters turned violent. They smashed barricades, vandalized the Capitol, and erected a gallows to hang Mike Pence and Senator Nancy Pelosi, who is not a senator but a representative. So that day, 5 people died, including 1 police officer. Over 140 police officers were injured. The hours-long assault ended when former President Trump tweeted for the protesters to go home. In the violence's aftermath, hundreds of protesters were convicted of insurrection, vandalism, possession of illegal weapons, or trespassing. Our data on the event includes 1, the complete Twitter archive of the former President Trump's Hereafter Trump 16 tweets, 2, the complete Twitter archive of 7,550 Stop the Steal tweets, 3, the complete text and audio of the 12 rally speech videos, and 4, 1,113 time-stamped live-action videos of the insurrection. Yeah, 7,500, yep. Ain't no way you read... No, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to see... So this is I'm actually going to share this article too with you guys. So this article too is going to be in the sources for you to look at your own time. It's too much to go over here right now, but it's very interesting. You can see the way that they correlated everything. So like what we just learned from reading all that information was that Trump would tweet something crazy out, or make a hysterical statement, and then more of the violence would spike, basically. So check this out. Trump tweets positive sentiment. Trump tweets negative sentiment. Stop the still tweets. Stop the still tweets. Weaponry level derived from Parler videos. Violence level derived from Parler videos. So you can see that there is consistency in he'll say something, and then the tweets will go up, and then the violence will go up too. You can see down here. So I'll share this with you guys. Yeah, this is way too much to go into here. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I think it's worth taking a look at. I'm going to look through this probably more when I'm editing the video. But yeah, during the January 6th Memorial March in Washington, D.C., MAGA supporters swarmed and assaulted an anti-MAGA female protester, cheering and shouting, "We rebuke you, Satan," before Secret Service police arrested her. This is, Goat sent this in. Let's take a look at this. This wasn't January 6th. This was today. So these are MAGA cultists assaulting a counter-protester violently.
We rebuke you! You demon! You demon! You evil!
God, this woman needs to be fucking curbed.
That's an assault!
The crowd is cheering on the violence. Yes, this happened today on public property. She wasn't arrested, just put into handcuffs and taken away. Yes, more of these roaches helping the Nazis march one lick of the boot at a time. MAGA equals cockroaches. Treat them as such. Agreed. These people, each and every one of them, are profoundly stupid, as in you could not possibly imagine their bare bones interior monologue because it's too profoundly broken. The U.S. is a failed state. Yeah. That's some Orwell shit. The U.S. is one massive Talibangelical training camp. Why is the left so violent? They worship Trump as their god because it makes them immune to the law like he is. I'm confused. No, the victim got arrested. What are you talking about? Those are just peaceful protesters. I rebuke you. Like they have... yeah. Fuck. Okay, so this is really frustrating. This is the official White House website page for January 6th. And this is what it says. President Trump took decisive action to pardon January 6th defendants who were unfairly targeted, overcharged, and used as political examples. They were not protected by the leaders who failed them. They were punished to cover incompetence. On the first day back in office, January 20, 2025, President Trump issued, this is their propaganda, sweeping blanket pardons and commutations for nearly 1,600 patriotic Americans prosecuted for their presence at the Capitol. Many mere trespassers or peaceful protesters treated as insurrectionists by a weaponized Biden Department of Justice. He fully pardoned most commuted sentences and ordered immediate release of those still imprisoned, ending years of harsh solitary confinement, denied due process, and family separation. So thousands of Americans paid the price for political failures they did not create. Since January 6, Nancy Pelosi spent over 3 years and nearly $20 million in taxpayer funds. How much did that fucking strike on Venezuela cost? Was it more than $20 million? A bipartisan select committee producing a scripted TV spectacle to fabricate an insurrection narrative and pin all the blame on President Trump. You guys, we read everything. We saw everything. We know everything. Did they fabricate an insurrection or was it an insurrection? I'll ask you guys. What do you think? Yeah. Yep. Video and audio recordings, including unaired HBO footage from their own daughter, show Nancy Pelosi repeatedly acknowledging responsibility. Okay, whatever. So this is his propaganda here about January 6th. It's ridiculous. In truth, it was the Democrats who staged the real insurrection by certifying a fraud-ridden election, ignoring widespread irregularities, and weaponizing federal agencies to hunt down dissenters, all while Pelosi's own security lapses invited the chaos they later exploited to seize and consolidate power. As we know, Pelosi, everyone begged for the National Guard to come, and it was refused by the Department of Defense. It's ridiculous. It's it's so absurd. I'm honestly kind of at a loss for words right now, guys. This is really frustrating. This is the White House official website. There needs to be justice for this. It's so absurd. NPR investigation shows how the government tried to erase information about January 6th. Since President Trump returned to office, his administration has actively tried to erase government information about the January 6th attack by his supporters on the U.S. Capitol. Now, on the 5th anniversary of the attack, NPR is preserving the history of that day. We've created a public archive, and this is going to be in the description too, guys. This will be the third article in there. We've created a public archive featuring hundreds of videos submitted as evidence, a timeline of events, and our own searchable database for those cases, plus a 2-part podcast on the day and the aftermath. NPR Investigations correspondent Tom Dresbach joins us now. Good evening. Good morning, Aisha. Yeah, so this is an interview here. They kind of go, let's see. Let's see. I don't think I can play this right now. That's pretty short. Let's see here. Part of the reason we're undertaking this project is because we're at this really striking moment with the public's understanding of what actually happened. You know, the government is actively trying to rewrite this history. 5 years ago, right after it happened, there was a kind of consensus. Republicans like Senator Ted Cruz called it an act of domestic terrorism. So did the FBI. Even Trump himself said the rioters, and remember, Ted Cruz was a conspirator in this. Even Trump himself said the rioters, quote, defiled the seat of democracy and must, quote, pay. 5 years later, Trump has now given mass pardons to more than 1,500 Jan 6 rioters. And those pardons apply to all of the most violent people who brutally assaulted police officers. Trump even calls them great patriots. And when he was asked why he included the violent rioters who assaulted cops, he denied that they had committed violence. Here's what he said last year. I pardon the J6 people who were assaulted by our government. That's who assaulted, and they were treated unfairly. There's never been a group of people in this country, outside of maybe one instance I can think of, but I won't go into it, they were treated more horribly than the people of January 6th. So, other than me. So no, I didn't assault. They didn't assault. They were assaulted. In reality, hundreds of defendants did commit violent assaults, but the administration is trying to change reality as people understand it. This is so fucking Orwellian, guys. This is literally 1984. Like, this is actually 1984. This shit is so unhinged. This is nuts. This needs to be stamped the fuck out. These people need to pay. They need to pay. They need to face justice for what they've done, for what they're continuing to do. This is absurd. They scrubbed references to the January 6th as a riot. They fired dozens of prosecutors who worked on those cases, and they even hired a former January 6th defendant to the Justice Department, a guy who calls cops Nazis and loudly yelled that the rioters should kill the cops. So with all those actions, I think that's the guy we were talking about that they spoke to, the one person that the White House had contact with who was a rioter. So with all those actions to rewrite this history, we thought it was really important to just ground people in the facts. And with all these 1,500 court cases, we have this massive trove of evidence, thousands of videos that we reviewed that show parts of the riot that most people have never seen. So, yeah, guys, this is all. I'm going to link this for you guys to take a look at. Like I said, we're not going to go through this whole thing now, but it's there for you, and it's going to be in the description. You guys, please check it out. Please do your homework on this. This is fucking wild. Last article, guys. Last article here. List of pardoned January 6 rioters who have faced new criminal charges. At least 33 people pardoned for their role in January 6th have been convicted of, charged with, or arrested in connection with additional crimes since the attack. Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee said in a new report. Why it matters. This article will be linked too, so I'll have these 4 articles linked for you guys. On the day of President Donald Trump's second inauguration, January 20th, he pardoned nearly all defendants charged with offenses related to the Capitol riot, a total of more than 1,500 people. Trump claimed that they were unfairly treated by the Justice Department. He said that pardons would end a grave national injustice that had been perpetrated upon the American people over the last 4 years and begin a process of national reconciliation. Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee said in the report released on Monday that the pardons undermine public safety. By overriding the U.S. pardon attorney and the Justice Department's time-honored process of analyzing individual clemency applications, President Trump threw caution to the wind, summarily commuting over 1,000 years of prison sentences for serious violent crimes, canceling fines and restitution ordered against insurrectionists, removing countless civil and legal disabilities from the convicted offenders, and releasing en masse back into the general population's hundreds of incarcerated, dangerous, violent criminals who have never demonstrated any remorse, much less rehabilitation for the crimes they committed on January 6th. Here is a list of pardoned people who have been convicted of, charged with, or arrested in connection with additional crimes since the riot. David Daniel, Andrew Kyle Grisby, Theodore Middendorf, Andrew Quentin Take, John D. Andrews, Joshua Lee Atwood, Brian Bettencourt, Dominic Box, Kyle Travis Colton, Timothy Desjardins, Jesus fucking Christ. It's important to read out all these names. It's important to remember these criminals for what they are. James Tate Grant, Jared Lee Hawks, Joshua Dylan Haynes, Emily Hernandez, Colby Dylan Harrington, Daryl Eugene Johnson, Edward Kelly, Keen Brian Lazo, Jai Lu, Martin Joseph Pastucci, Donald Nathan Pelham, Narayana Chandra Reiner, we read about her, remember? Alan Michael St. Onge, Hatchet Speed, Jesus Christ, Taylor Toronto, Shane Jason Woods, Miles Adkins, Zachary Allam, John Bonellis, Brent John Holdridge, Matthew Huddle, Christopher Moynihan. Abigail Jackson, a White House spokesperson, in a statement to Newsweek, the media's continued obsession with January 6th is one of the many reasons trust in the press is at historic lows. They aren't covering issues that American people actually care about. President Trump was resoundingly reelected to enact an agenda based on securing the border, driving down crime, and restarting our economy. He's failed in that for sure. The president is delivering. Representative Jamie Raskin, a Maryland Democrat and ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee on X, said, "For MAGA, the 1,600 January 6 rioters pardoned by Trump are not white supremacist cop beaters, violent criminals, and seditious conspiracists. They are patriots, political prisoners, and hostages. MAGA is rewriting history. Democrats will keep telling the truth, the foundation of democracy." Yeah. Yep. So, all right, guys, that's going to end it here for us for our January 6th coverage, or deep dive, not really coverage, deep dive tonight. I hope you guys enjoy the 3+ hour video of me basically reading Wikipedia to you. But yeah, I felt like that was important. It's important to get this out there. It's important that we all understand. If you watched until the end, good for you. I'm proud of you. Good job. Not necessary though. I'm linking the relevant articles in the description, so you'll be able to see it there. But yeah, anyways, guys, thanks for joining me today, tonight, whatever it is for this. It's fucking upsetting. Definitely. We need to do a lot of work to make sure this never happens again. See you guys later. All right. I don't know what else to say. Honestly, after that, I'm just totally at a loss for words after everything we've looked at tonight. But, speak the truth. Your First Amendment right matters. Don't let them erase what happened, and never allow this to happen again. Have a good one. Stay safe. All that.